It's 9 o'clock. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. First order of business is to approve the minutes of January 7th, 2025 as written.
I'll move. I'll second.
Moved by McCurry, seconded by Meeks. Any discussion?
I'll abstain.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 401. Sign all these, Auntie, right?
Yes, please.
Looks like you got a long day, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Next, we'll recess at 9:01 a.m. for the oath of the officers of the newly elected officials.
Well, Jesse, it's been a pleasure to serve with you, and thank you for your 4 years of service to Coffee County.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Don?
You as well, Don. You have more than 4 years, though, right?
Yeah, I've had eight. I had eight, and talked about it a little bit here last week when you weren't here, Tom. And, you know, it's an honor to serve Coffee County, and it's really been great to serve. We serve a district, and like I mentioned last week, we're elected by a district, but yet we serve the whole Coffee County. And that's absolutely our purpose and the value that we have, so.
Right.
It's been a fun run. It's time to go to work now.
Yes.
You too. Good luck. That's all I can say.
It's been great to work with you, Tom.
Mr. Thompson?
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, bud.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Get back on.
Sure.
Mark, welcome. You're on the other side of the table now. Like Whitman said, you're free to be cussed at.
I'm expecting that.
So as vice chairman, I guess, moment, the thing to be to do is, let me see here. We need to elect a chairman and a vice chairman. I make a motion, Wade Thompson become chairman.
Can I second that motion?
I've moved. Steve's seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Abstain.
Motion passes 4-0. 4-1, whatever. Move to appoint vice chairman of Coffee County Board of Commissioners for the year 2025.
I'll nominate Steve McCurry to be vice chair.
I second that.
Thompson nominated, moved to Steve McCurry to be vice chairman, and Parker is seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes.
Abstain.
4-1. Here's your new chairman, your vice chairman. Luis.
So at this point, Wade, you take over the meeting now?
Okay. So, I guess if everybody will humor me for a minute, I'd heard a rumor that this could possibly happen. So I guess one of the things I'd like to say is I've had the privilege of serving for 2 years with a group of guys who, 5 totally different personalities. All of us had some business background. Everybody had their specialty that they're able to contribute. And the best thing about it has been we definitely did not all agree on those points. When a subject came up, we didn't always agree, but we voted on it and we moved on, and everybody moved on to the next point of business. And it's been a pleasure to be able to serve obviously don't have the memory skills that Bob Saresic, my predecessor, had, or, you know, Jesse did a good job of leading the meeting, so I'll do my best, and I'll have to rely on some of the rest of his memory to help me along the way, but I can guarantee you I'll do my best, so thank you.
Thank you.
So we move on to the next item on here. Okay, move to authorize and direct the chairman to sign 21 tax abatements in the amount of $11,357.44. I didn't get a chance to look at these, so anybody else look at them?
I did, and it's just like Polaris Ranger and farm equipment type stuff. I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Been moved by McCurry and seconded by Huguenin. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Move to appoint Callie Zirkle to the Tourism and Visitors Board to serve a 2-year term effective immediately and ending 12/31/2027.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Huguenin and seconded by Peterson. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moved. Okay, do we have anyone else to appoint to the? tourism board?
Not at this point. I put that on there in case one of the commissioners would want to be on there. I thought you might want to have 2 people, not just one for the moment, until
Okay.
you get the next 1, 2, or 3 appointed. So I
Okay.
don't know if anyone on the board is,
When's their meetings?
I think as needed, or once a year.
It's typically around June sometime. It's to determine how the bed tax is going to be spent, essentially.
I
I
see.
see. I guess I can do that.
Go ahead.
I move to appoint Tom Hughenden to the Tourism and Visitors Board. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
To serve a 2-year term effective immediately and ending 12/31/2026.
Mhm.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Who seconded on that?
I didn't ask for a second, did
I'll second it.
I? Okay.
Mark did.
Okay, sorry. No, we're good, Steve. Just trying to jack me up. Okay, so now we go back to our agenda, is that
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
Sorry.
Okay,
Here, I'll hand you out a paper one so you can all have that.
Well, we got, River City sitting here.
yeah. So, River City Construction, weekly update, jail construction.
Handed out a couple different items. We'll start with our little look ahead at schedule. Mainly going on with interior rough-in or MEP rough-in. The ductwork and plumbing have primarily moved to the sheriff's office, and the electrical and fire suppression are working on the south half of the building, working their way north, following up the MEP, or the plumbing and sheet metal guys. The painter is here. He started priming on level 2 on the sheetrock, and he's going to be working level 1, the booking and intake to the jail area on block filler and prime and paint, getting first coat on everything, and getting him out of the way so we can start swinging doors in the near future in the jail, booking and intake area. The sheetrockers have finished up on 2, with exception to a couple miscellaneous items. They are framing on level 1. They're mainly in pod C, framing out the soffits above the cells and putting the security mesh above those cells, and then they will be moving to sheetrocking in the sheriff's office. That's the big ticket items. You got the insulator here. weather permitting, we got a couple exterior items, brick washing, finishing up some windows. The awning, we've kind of been pushed off with the weather. It's supposed to have been installed, and we've got a nice little shot that we will take for now, take moisture. That's about it. Any questions progress-wise, where we stand, or it's starting to look like something. I don't know if you've been upstairs. We got sheet rock, and it actually looks like a building on level 2. The second item is just our monthly update. We put this together for our company owners, the River City owners. We presented to the sheriff and Wade at our monthly owner meetings with the architect, and then we present to you all kind of just a quick overview where we stand. Not a lot of changes, change order. We got a couple change orders to go over, but there's not been a lot of movement since we last talked, which is a good thing. Things have slowed down a little bit. There's still work pricing in on some of them, but nothing major that we've seen here recently. Do have a pay app coming in. I think it's a little over 1.4 million this month. Kind of a back tick from where we were last month on number wise, but that was as to be expected. We had some big ticket items going on the past couple months. Any questions on any of that aspect? The last one I have, this is what do you call it? I can't blank in here.
The plaque.
Yes, the plaque. It'll go on the building, showing kind of the team members here. We are in the final approval stage. Wanted to present it to you all. If you had any objections, any changes, just wanted to get it in front of you all to get a final blessing, essentially.
It's good to me. Yeah, it looks good. I'm curious how big is,
It'll be 18 by 12 inches.
oh, okay, all right.
Not gonna blind you from the street.
No.
No, I'm just curious.
Something to walk up and see.
Right,
But
right.
kind of just like I said, all the team members who was part of it, and but as long as there's no comments or issues, that's how it'll look. Perfect. Appreciate you all, and welcome new members. Thank you.
Wade, I don't know, somehow we didn't get Ryan on there, but he is wanting to visit with you guys. He just has something small, so.
Okay. Well, that's right.
Oh,
Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome Todd and Mark. So I just look forward to working with you guys. You know, it was a privilege working with Jesse and Don. I think they were very good in my department and easy to work with. You know, they really did a nice job, and you know, I just look forward to continue doing that. It wasn't on the agenda, but I had one thing come up there Friday, and this is be a motion. Send that up. Okay, it's for a CP2. This would be for an employee that has completed his probationary period. 6-month date was the 3rd of January. So this is just giving him a one-step raise from 2028 to 2066 for an increase of 38 cents an hour due to completion of the probationary period.
Okay. Move to authorize and direct the chairman to sign the CP2 for Jared Shepard, heavy equipment operator, highway, probationary period complete, step change from wage classification 3501 to 3502, from wage 2028 to 2066, effective 1/3/2024.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
It's been moved by McCurry, seconded by Huguenin. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. That is really all I had today. the roads. I mean, we had that second little stuff come through last week with the snow, so that just kind of added another element to the ice-packed roads that we had. So we worked hard on the roads, and asphalt roads are looking good. The gravel roads are still a mess, so we'll keep whittling away and trying to get some of that stuff off the roads, but it's just gonna take some sunshine and some temperatures, which I think we're gonna get later this week, hopefully.
For a brief period.
For a brief period, then it's gonna get deep freeze again, but, they're starting to talk a potential storm the end of next weekend possibly, but it's too far out, so hopefully it stays away.
Appreciate the work you've done.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
guys.
thank you.
I know it's not an easy task, especially when that ice is first,
Uh,
and then that snow on there, that makes it hard.
yeah.
It's a real hard.
No, that ice it's a different ballgame dealing with that
Whole
ice
different
under
ballgame. Sometimes you're better off leaving that snow on there.
Yeah,
Which some people, that have parking lots and
Right.
business don't realize that.
Yeah.
It was, we don't have to leave it. But
yeah.
Hey, your crews have done a good job on
Well,
it.
thank you, I'll pass that on.
Okay.
They have worked hard, so
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
I think we had 7 days in a row that we were dealing with snow and ice stuff, so it's a pretty long stretch at one time.
Yeah.
So,
How's Adam doing? Is he doing okay?
yeah, and that fire stuff he was on the other day,
Yeah.
so, yeah, he was off for a day and a half there, but he's back.
Good.
Well, I appreciate it, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good week.
You too.
So I knew I would forget something in my little speech that I gave before, was that I wanted to welcome both our new members. And having visited with both of you men, I think we've all got the goal here that, in my mind, we all represent the whole county, not just our district. And it's going to be we'll move forward Coffee County. So welcome.
Thank you.
Now what?
Round table? Wade always got something.
You could do round table, and then you've got the 2 interviews this afternoon,
Yeah.
and then we've got some stuff to sign for checks and
Okay.
vouchers. So.
What do I got here?
Abatements to sign and checks for you,
Okay.
and then the vouchers can go around with everybody else.
So I don't sign the vouchers, is that right?
You don't need to sign the vouchers, but you can
Since I'm
sign
signing
the
the
front
checks.
report.
Okay.
The front report on them, you can sign that.
Okay. Well, and as I guess everybody's okay with kind of in customary that, after the meeting, we'll move the chairman and the vice chair over here, if that's okay. And just for this reason that
Convenience.
hopefully Angie can help keep me lined out a little bit and stuff to hand back and forth that just the chairman can sign, so.
Easy way of it, chairman, vice chairman.
Yeah. Thanks.
And if you guys later, we would get your signatures if you want stamps, in case we need to use your stamp for anything.
Okay. So do we want to do roundtable then, guys?
Yeah.
Please?
River City was here, they talked about the pay application that is going to soon be coming for, what do you say, 1.4. And then, I don't remember if there's any outstanding change orders that are likely will be once they're approved. So since we have a new board, it's new makeup, I want to make sure the current practice is still what the board's wish and desire is moving forward. What currently occurs is the pay application is sent to me and to the sheriff. Same thing with change orders. Both of us find time to meet with usually Cole and Lisa. It's anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, and we go over each and every page of the pay application. We go through the overall numbers and then question on all of the different vendors who have done work and are requesting to be reimbursed for whatever they've done for the last month. It's a month at a time, so you'll see on each individual pay app that will cover whatever that calendar month was. Same thing similar with change orders, I don't know if you have the master sheet, if you've watched, it's somewhat confusing, but River City calls it potential change order, and then they have a series of them, and then when they present it to the county, it's the next sequence of change order, but within the change order presented to the county, it may have 4 or 5 or 2 or 1 potential change order that is what River City calls it. So I'm just asking for what is the desire of the board now to continue that current practice and bring it to you for presentation. Do you want to add a member of the board to be a part of that process? I'm just seeking guidance and direction so that when I receive the next pay application and or change order, that I make sure I'm following what your request and desire is.
Well, observing myself, what you've done, Wade, you and Sheriff Johnson, going over all of those apps, I guess I'm satisfied with the way it is. If anybody else has
I'm very
a better
satisfied.
idea.
I think you got it in an hour, 2 or 3 every
Looks like,
month.
yeah, a lot of research
A lot
goes
of
into
research
checking
goes in, and
behind the scenes. Yeah.
I'm good with leaving it just the way it is.
I'm fine as well. I mean, it goes to the engineer for approval too, and then you guys nitpick it or whatever you wanna do, and so.
Okay.
It's a unique process. In talking with Cole, some of the contractors are not, it's not normal to have the level of maybe double, triple scrutiny that it has the way it is. And to back up, the reason why it's done this way is early on in the jail construction process, there was a concern about the level of transparency and just rubber stamping pay applications and change orders. And we've added this additional layer of scrutiny so that it didn't just appear to be rubber stamped. And we ask tough questions. Cole will oftentimes have to go back and ask the contractor, where did this figure come from, or what is it for? At this juncture, he usually can tell ahead of time where either I'm going to ask questions or the sheriff is going to ask questions, that he has those answers in advance. So I think it works well. Usually it's just carving out time for me, for the sheriff, and for Cole to meet. The majority of the time we're sitting in the sheriff's office until 6 or 7 o'clock doing it so that we can fit that time in. But if that's you're okay with that?
Unless you guys are getting burned out on it. I mean, like I say, it goes to the engineer for approval, and then you guys do your thing, which is appreciated.
Yeah. I think it provides a little.
Just depends on where you think it's needed still.
Yeah.
I will say, out in the community, I've been stopped and approached by several different individuals, and they watch the meetings and they appreciate the level of scrutiny, putting it up on the screen and showing in red where numbers match up and what we've gone through. It's extra work, but to me, as also a taxpayer in this county, and someone who wants to be fiscally responsible with taxpayer money, I think the transparency is important for me personally.
Good enough.
I've had people comment that too, that everybody likes to see, it's a huge project, everybody likes to see where their tax dollars are going.
That's right.
I appreciate you basically going over that with them for their benefit. The people that want to watch it on YouTube get to see why was there this change order, et cetera. So.
Well, the goal is not to spend all $30 million. That's what was approved by the taxpayers, and unfortunately after COVID and with the change, with inflation and the cost of doing business, costs escalated, and what was anticipated to be the cost of the jail went up. There is phase 2. There are designs that will be brought before you at some point soon, and I'm hoping that it's not presented to this board and to the taxpayers that all $30 million will be allocated, but I don't have that crystal ball either. Trying to keep the jail itself under what it needs to be and meet the needs of the jail side. You know, the sheriff cut quite a bit in the jail project, and the overall goal of the project was to build a jail. So I'm hoping what you see from this point forward, including the renovation on the court side, is a breath of fresh air. But you know, the tough part is for people who don't deal with the criminal justice system to understand the importance of why the new jail is needed, what the issues or concerns are related to the current jail, and then why it's natural to go ahead and renovate the court side to create a secure corridor due to potential safety issues or concerns. So I'll just leave it at that.
Well, after touring it, I still don't, you know, obviously the stage it's at and construction now, it's a little hard to visualize everything, but have a better understanding of how that it's going to work. And looks like to me we're going to have a much more secure situation than we have now, very, very much more. So I think public safety will be enhanced, is my opinion. So.
The next thing I wanted to add to roundtable, and Steve can add to it. I went to Waverly City Council on, what night was that?
Last Wednesday.
Wednesday night, sort of. It was contacts and can you make it next month? I said, when is their meeting? It was that night, and basically it was to provide an update to the Waverly City Council regarding the CHIPS application and where it stood. And my impression was they wanted an update because they were in the process of signing the letter, the letter of support that covers the entire county. So I attended that meeting, but I was also able to get hold of Dr. Wyatt, who was also ready, able, and willing to provide an update to the Waverly City Council by phone. And that occurred, and I think he did more talking than I did because he's dealing with it on a day-to-day basis and knows a whole lot more about it than I do. So he talked for what, 15, 20 minutes?
15, 20 minutes, and the council, the mayor and the council was really appreciative of Wade being able to come up, and because they'd asked me to do it, if I could do an update, and I said, I know someone that can do a better job than I can, and so I called Mr. Bree, and he was gracious enough to come up that evening, and he did a great job.
Good.
The next thing for the current makeup of the board, and maybe you know this has been discussed, maybe you don't. The application process for appointed boards in Coffee County. There have been talks and conversation about the application itself and whether that application needs to be revised to include some additional questions. That's one. Number two is whether somebody who has applied for an appointed board, part of that process should be whether that individual should at least come before the board and introduce themselves and sort of give what I'll call a pitch. That has, number two has been discussed previously with the last board, and I think there was a soft pass on that at that point, due to these are people who are applying for a volunteer board, but it's something I'll renew for this particular board moving forward, and whether that is something, those two items should be discussed and maybe vetted a little bit more.
I agree.
Your appointed board members, for any board in this county, serve at the will and the pleasure of this board. They're appointed, and I think it's an important function and responsibility of the governing body who makes those appointments to go through and properly.
A lot, don't mean to interrupt you, but a lot of them that come through here, like, you know, somebody from that district knows that person, so that's why it's easy to just vote them in.
Right.
But some additional information probably wouldn't hurt.
The only thing about having them come in and giving a spiel is that I think that would create a hardship on them, especially if they've got other jobs and going on. I'm not
As to whether it's a requirement or not.
Yeah.
What you're gonna say.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I would be for that, but I do think that some vetting needs to be done just a little more, however that can be done, with, you know.
So it may be of value to sit down, look at the application itself and see if there are other additional questions this board would like to see added to try to maybe answer some additional questions to give you more information.
Right.
You know, do appointed board members, and this is not saying it needs to occur, but do they need to have a background check? Do they need to be, do you need additional information related to,
I mean, that's something pretty simple the sheriff can do for us each application, or is it not, background check?
well, if somebody's coming to work for the county, and I know these are appointed boards, but whoever is on a board is an appointment and a representation of the county in whatever role they're in, so it may be of value that you make sure you know who's on your particular board. I mean, I don't know, when I first was a part of this process, it used to be you go basically down to the post office and say, hey, you want to be on the board? We have an opening, and next thing you know, that person's appointed to the board, so it's taken a dramatic shift since then. I think it's important that people have the ability to, if they want to apply, they can apply, and then there's a vetting process.
And I think there probably needs to be some more questions. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think probably there needs to be some additional questions asked on the application side, and you would have a better idea of what those questions might be, I believe.
Something we'd have to research probably a little bit.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to plant the seed and sort of get that conversation started, so that, I mean, appointments to boards in this county, that's important to the lifeblood of the county and all the appointed boards that operate within the county, so I'd like to have that conversation maybe sometime in the very near future, pull out the application, go over it, and see what modifications or revisions are recommended, and then go from there, would be my suggestion. I believe it's should be next week sometime. The final December figures for the Midwest region regarding COLA for the new board members. The COLA is something several years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, that was separated. Usually you'd have COLA and you'd have step increases considered at the same time. When the salary study was completed, the recommendation was to separate the two and deal with and address COLA in January. And the figures come out mid-December. Once those are printed, then Angie will present that to you. You'll see what those figures are, and then be able to make a determination one way or another regarding COLA increase, if that's what you so decide for the county employees.
They're not available yet, then, those figures.
Did I send that to you, Wade? Did I send that link to you to see what you thought, or I can print it off?
I think it comes out the third week in January usually.
Okay.
The third week in January. The
Yeah.
third week in
The
January.
third week in January.
All they have out there right now is through November.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So what you're waiting for is the final figures for December, which will give you the COLA or the CPI figure for the entire calendar year for 2024. And that's usually, historically, what you based your evaluation and consideration on, is that CPI figure.
Okay.
So if we get it this week, I can forward it out to email. Just remember to not respond to my email unless you want to privately message me, otherwise you're violating open meeting.
So Angie, on these tax abatements, I just signed here where it says approved by commission.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Okay.
So the last thing that I would have, and this is a preference for the board, there's a legal update that I could provide to the board overall regarding the CHIPS application. It's not something I can discuss openly due to the application itself that's pending. So I don't know if that's something that the board is interested in, especially considering we have 2 new board members who have not been privy to some of those discussions previously.
I would like to be brought up to speed on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, since there is a wide gap between now and 1 o'clock, I think time is available, since 1 o'clock seems quite a ways away. I don't know if you want to have a break first, and then I can formally request an executive session for, usually at 10 o'clock, I think that's when breaks occur, but
9:50. Usually, or whatever.
9:50,
Whatever.
If you have time, we can take a break and then, how long are you gonna need?
I'd start with 20 minutes, that's usually my default.
Okay, so.
Oh, it's anything written yet.
And for the board members, new board members, there's an egg timer. That egg timer was intentionally, it's actually a kitchen timer brought out several years ago to show that time is important and making sure that the time that has been requested once the board convenes in the executive session, that time, the button is entered, and by the time the board walks back up, that's the time it took from the end of the executive session to walk back upstairs. We don't meet here in this meeting room. That occurred historically. Several years ago during COVID, discovered that the walls in this room are paper thin to the point where the former sheriff, you could hear a conversation he was having with another individual down in the lobby during COVID time. And executive session, the whole point is that the communication be only those individuals. So there's a room down at the west, on the west end of the building that is brick on one side, and then it's an open office. I feel confident that conversations that occur in that office are confidential, but the downside is it takes a few minutes to walk down there, which is why, for those who watch, you see everybody get up, leave, where did they go, that's where they went, and then by the time it takes to walk back up.
So does everybody want to take a 10-minute break then?
Sure.
Okay, so I guess we'll take a break for 10 minutes and reconvene at 10:11. So how much food? We need to wait for Boo to get back, or?
You can do a small round table.
Todd, do you have anything for roundtable for today? I'm sorry.
Just got a mouthful.
I've got Todd in the same boat. Like, whoops, it's 10:11.
I just think the more that, with Wade talking about transparency and stuff at the jail, that's just very, very important with everything we do. Sometimes watching the YouTube things, people don't really understand what's going on because people here know what's happening, but it goes by so fast, and you can't be too transparent.
I agree.
So I just wanted to bring that up.
Sure, I agree 100%. Don't have anything that we're trying to hide, and try to share everything that we can. And Mr. Bowie is very good about making sure that we don't go into executive session as long as it's something that's allowed, because we don't want to violate the Open Meetings Act. So, yeah, I agree, Todd. It's very important.
And I'm sure there'll be more as we go along here.
Sure.
Get my feet wet.
Oh, absolutely.
What is it, transparency? Me and Cody Haddock heard about it from Joe Public all the time, transparency. That's why we got the YouTube thing going. It's been a blessing and a curse, but at least people can go back and watch and see. And
That's right.
there's no offense, sometimes not everything that's actually said here makes it to the paper.
Right.
Right. Yeah, it's just impossible for everything to get published. Yeah. Steve?
I don't have anything right now, maybe, no, I don't have anything today.
Okay. I don't have anything today.
I spoke to Barb lately about the roof downtown yet, but we're looking for some alternates, so.
Okay.
So we're out.
Mark?
I have nothing.
Angie?
I do.
Imagine that,
So I'm printing off, your commission committees list that you can look over to see who wants to be on what, and I'll get that here in a second. In the swearing-in ceremony, I was caught off guard when Judge Woodman asked me how many terms I'd served. I have served 5. I'm beginning my 6th. So, I don't know how I worded that down there, but with all the people, and I was just kind of like, oh.
I think you said 5.
I think I said 5.
Yeah,
I think he said, how many have you served? And I think
Yeah,
I said
so that's
5.
correct.
That is correct, but then I'm beginning my 6th. So
Right.
I guess I did say it correctly, but I just wanted to let you know. It's been a long time. Next Monday, we're closed for, is it President's Day, or, wait, what is that?
Martin Luther
Martin Luther King, so we're closed, so your meeting will be on Tuesday. And I think this week, don't you guys have commissioner school, new commissioner school?
We do.
Yeah.
And that's for Topeka.
That's Topeka, yeah. And so, I don't know if while y'all are in executive session, I'll get the committees list, and then when you get back after your update, we can kind of hash over who wants to do what, or I can give them to you on your way, and you can look at them on your way down there, whatever.
It'll be fine when we come back, we got time.
And I think that's all I have at the moment, unless I think of something else for new people.
Okay, wow, that was short. Okay, well, I guess you ready to go downstairs then, guys?
I'll give one more update, because I'd rather do all the updates and then go into executive session. Had an interview for the open custodian position last week. There's an interview team that met and prepared to offer the position, depending on if they're willing to accept it. And so, at least from their interview, their background, training and experience, and the investigation that was done into their background, I think they'll be a good fit. But they would be subject to the 6 months of probation. If they're not a good fit, then that would be the time we figure it out. So we are down a custodian position, have been for a period of time, so it'll be good to get back to at least full strength within this building and then go from there.
Have you offered the position?
Not yet. I'm trying, I need to coordinate the pre-employment drug test with Kenny so that we have that set up and we can get that addressed ahead of time. But that's prior to being a county employee, sort of the normal course of action. I'd anticipate if I can get that drug screen set up for later this week and try to have their starting date the 21st. So as I indicated before the break, I'm requesting an executive session under the attorney-client exception to the Kansas Open Meetings Act. The communication with this board would be privileged, and it is in reference to a legal update regarding the current CHIPS application that involves the county as well. There are sensitive subject matter that would potentially compromise that application if it were to be discussed or disseminated in an open setting. I think you've heard that, or if you go back in time, that communication has been very similar. It was even the same communication that Dr. Wyatt had on December 9th when he was here, and he requested an executive session under a different subject matter, but 20 minutes, myself and the board.
Okay, move to enter into executive session for 20 minutes. to include each of the commissioners, County Councilor Wade Bowie, to discuss matters deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, legal update regarding CHIPS application under KSA 75-4319B2. We will go in at,
I'll make the motion.
okay.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we go into executive session for 20 minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will go in at, I think it's ready to click over, 10:23. That's suitable? Yes. No action taken in the last executive session, is that correct?
Yep. I think the highlighted summary is, as Dr. Wyatt mentioned last time he was here, and as has been mentioned since then, if you watch NIST.gov and what the current administration is doing, they're continuing to issue PMTs, and hopefully the local application will be considered and there'll be a PMT awarded, but time is ticking.
Discuss these.
Could I bring up the other thing first?
Sure.
So one of the things I forgot to mention earlier when we were discussing roundtable was that, so if you guys recall last year, you were getting the chamber re-set up and all of that. All of this, I believe, took place after or sometime around the budget was approved or kind of already set. Anyway, apparently there was discussion on July 8th during the meeting that you guys said that you would be able to give the chamber $150,000 for 2025 in that recording. So my question is, since we did not specifically budget that for the chamber, do you want to like take it out of community improvement reserve or, okay.
I think so.
So
I do.
they're gonna need,
That's what it's all about.
right,
Yeah.
they're gonna need funding for this year to run on. So she had called wondering when she could get that check. And so I didn't know if you wanted us to go ahead and issue it today, which we can as a special issue, or do it for next Tuesday. I mean, I think they might be okay for a week. She didn't say there was anything like critical, she couldn't make it a week, but, you know, I just need to know, and then if we go ahead and do that and get it to them so that they will have their funding for the year.
Sounds fun to me.
I think we used to go ahead and.
Yeah.
I think she's been really active out in the community.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll get that going then, and it will be at a community improvement reserve, and, we'll find out if she's wanting it today, or since you're gonna be here all day. I will be gone this afternoon, my son's ball game, so I will have Casey sit in. So, but anyway, we'll get it figured out. So yeah, so now, the commission committees that we have, so Mark, you had taken Don's place for that district, so there's the 3 that he served on, and then Todd the ones Jesse had there. I don't know if you guys want to switch any around amongst all of you, or if you're fine with taking on those and leaving everything else the same. I don't know.
I'm happy with what he had.
Pardon me?
I said, I'm happy doing what he had, what he was assigned to.
I may have conflict with one.
Okay?
Well, number one, my daughter works for the museum, and that was on, as I liaison to the museum. And it meets the second Thursday of the month, which I have a conflict on the second Thursday of the month.
Could anyone, switch something with Mark on the museum, or?
When do they meet?
Second Thursday of the month.
Time?
I have no idea. I think it's in the evening, I'm pretty sure.
And what's that on, Mark?
The museum?
Board.
Oh, okay.
How often do they meet?
Monthly.
Okay.
As far as I know, it's monthly.
I just have right now I'm having an issue making evening meetings, so there's a reason I haven't been going to zoning and planning. So I guess I'd have to pass it this time.
Number two under Dawn was reassigned to Amelia.
I have her at the bottom. Was she an alternate, or was she the actual?
She's the,
So that's gone. Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood that then.
oh, so number two,
Number
second
two
one's
is
not
not
there
there.
at all. No, yep.
She's not an alternate, okay. I apologize for that.
If we keep going, I won't have anything.
Yeah.
This is awful, but I see that I'm on the Collier County Museum also, and I'm not making a meeting,
You're an alternate.
so that's,
So if Don couldn't make it,
oh,
then
okay,
he would
okay,
switch
okay,
him.
okay.
Well,
Oh, Tom, you say you have trouble making it to planning and zoning?
Yeah, I just, still not back in shape from everything I went through. Just by the time evening hits me, I'm flat wore out.
Would you be interested in doing that?
I could possibly do that. I mean, I have another meeting I go to, but this starts essentially right after it ends, so that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
You picking up some?
Yeah, so I could do that.
County zoning and planning board goes to Mark then, and then, Todd would be the alternate, correct?
that's what it shows right now, yeah.
Correct, because Jesse was the alternate.
Okay.
So we still need to figure out who'd be the main on the or the museum, and who'd be alternate.
Well,
Or if we could wait till next Tuesday.
I
I can see what time we meet.
for the museum is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I guess I could probably do that if, I mean, I'm not looking for another appointment, but I'd be willing to take that, I guess. I mean, I guess you just go to their meeting and they meet once a month and just basic operation stuff, I assume.
Well, it's on the second Thursday, which is the same night as New Strong City Council.
Well, I'd rather not do that then.
You usually go to that.
That's right,
Yeah.
that's right.
Well, as soon as my strength gets back, I'll pick up some of these, but
Sure.
I apologize, I just can't.
No, you need to take care of yourself.
Yeah, I'm glad you reminded me of that, Mark, so,
Yeah, no
yeah.
problem. That was my conflict.
Okay.
I'd really rather not take anything else on, I'm pretty full right now as far as,
Looks like it.
So, I guess, so Todd, since there's a couple that are meets as needed, would you be able to do the museum
That'd be fine.
for now until, because we can always address these later if somebody wants to change something, but,
So Todd's gonna be on the museum.
yeah. And then you could still be the alternate, Steve, maybe?
That's fine,
Okay,
that's fine.
because I know you're pretty loaded up too.
But no, that's fine, I can fill in if needed.
So, otherwise, so then we're adding museum to Todd. Mark, you're gonna have insurance committee and planning and zoning.
Right.
I'm not missing anything else for now, right?
Right.
Okay, and then Wade's not changing, Steve's not changing, Tom's removing counting and zoning and planning. And then, yeah, I guess that's it. Are we good?
Yeah.
So I'll fix the new committee chart and that'll be updated.
Okay, then
Thank
if we
you.
have a
Yeah, if there's
conflict or
something.
something we figure out, we can
Or-
readjust then.
We can
Yeah.
If
readjust.
somebody needs to change something at some point, we can readdress it, but at least now we've got the new
Sure.
on.
Usually the board meets at noon on the second Thursday.
Oh, it meets at noon?
On the second Thursday.
I can do that.
Do what?
I can do that.
Oh, well,
I mean, if they meet at noon,
Todd, do you want Tom to have that then?
The library?
The museum?
The museum, if, Tom, if you want, I mean, you can get there.
Okay.
I'm dispersed enough things, I wouldn't mind picking up some that
Sure.
I know I can attend. and
Okay.
Earlier in the day.
Earlier in the day, the better for me.
You good?
Second Thursday at noon? All right.
They're actually meeting this Thursday, because they pushed it back due to weather.
Okay.
Okay, so Tom will be adding museum, zoning and planning going to Mark, nothing changes for Wade, nothing changes for Steve, and, well, nothing will change for Todd now. Just keep what it is. Okay. I'll fix that.
Good.
Should be good.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for cooperating with me on that.
That's the plan until we come up with another plan, right? Well, does anybody else have any more roundtable or anything, or?
I did want to bring up, and I've mentioned it, now that the new board's in place, the Beto Junction Community Improvement District and the necessity to make a tangible improvement in that district within this calendar year, to just be thinking about that, to something will have to happen, and if it doesn't happen, then that CID will have to be dissolved. So it's significant. I don't have the fund balance list, but in that fund balance, the last I recall is about $220,000 or $240,000, and that's since its inception. So that's the additional 2 cent sales tax that's up there. Basically, it's what I'd call or characterize a traveler's tax for those who are passing through. They go in, they do business up there, and that extra 2 cents goes into that fund. And it's not unique just to Coffee County. You will drive all the way up and down I-35 and go in anywhere, you look at the tax you pay. The CID tax is something that is, that the majority of places capture that because it's additional money that can come back in and improve that district, that area. So, and it will carry on for years and years to come, help continue to improve that area. Just right now, it's the duty and obligation of this board to make an improvement in that district and do so in a way that meets the CID Act and is considered a tangible improvement. So, I don't.
Is that on both sides, Wade, or I can't remember, or is that just on the PA side, or?
It's within that area. The language is tied to the document that is signed by PA, But I wanna make sure as that conversation moves forward, that if something is going to occur there, that whoever's a part of that area where that improvement's gonna be made, it runs through the chain of command to make sure that we don't have an unnecessary delay in getting something done when we have somebody that's, you need to have them sign off on it, they're on the East Coast or West Coast or wherever it is. If you recall, getting those documents signed to begin with, it took quite a while for Joe Serrano to get done because he was dealing with corporate attorneys. I don't remember whether they were in Ohio or Delaware or somewhere on the East Coast. So, and I'll be hopefully in contact with somebody from Kutak Rock who will be stepping into Joe's shoes in the very near, hopefully in the next week or two.
And something has to be done by the end of the year, is that correct?
Correct.
I mean, not just in planning, but actually.
That's a good question, and I can interpret it both ways. So I just want to make sure there's not something I'm missing in my interpretation of the word. But under the CID Act, what can be considered an improvement, I mean, it's fairly wide open, and it's, I think, as creative as the mind will allow you to be, but it has to be a tangible improvement.
So, is, on the west side, I know the Fuel Espresso, or whatever it's called.
Right.
I know they're involved, but is Levo Garage involved? Are they part of they're in the area, aren't they?
Yes, I believe they're a part of the CID district. So, and what might be helpful is for that paperwork to be pulled back out, for there to be, I was trying to find a map that I could present to you. The only one that I could find so far is in black and white, doesn't do a very good job of illustrating who's in that district. I think a color map would help, and then it outlines.
Rhonda sure has, doesn't she?
She may.
Bet she does.
She probably does. I didn't even think to ask her.
And it's within the calendar year 2025?
Yes.
Is when this improvements need to be made?
Either be made or in the process of being made. But
Okay.
there has to be a plan and action moving forward. At a minimum, it just depends, that's where that interpretation comes in.
Well, I think maybe we talked a little bit about some parking lot improvements possibly for both truck stops, and, you know, maybe, might be a possibility of doing some fencing or something for Levo Garage. I don't know whether that would fall under the qualifications.
I mean, to me, based on my interpretation or review of the CID Act, I think it seems to fall within the boundaries. I'd want to double check with, these are discussions I was having with Joe Serrano, because he was waiting until the new board was installed to come and have these conversations.
Is there a certain percentage of the monies that have to be used, or how is that?
There is no,
No.
there's no requirement. I think that fund just continues to increase over time, and the goal is to continue to improve that.
That area.
district. Yep.
So if there's a $250,000 there, you only use 50,000, that's an improvement.
Does that keep us in compliance then if we spend 20% or 50% or whatever of the money?
My impression is it does.
Okay.
But whenever the money that's in, my understanding is whenever the money that's in that account tied to the CID is being used, it has to be used in that CID geographic area. to
And
improve it.
that's a yearly thing, is that correct?
I don't believe it's a yearly thing, I think the initial improvement has to be made by December 31st.
Okay.
I think after that, then it ends up being, that increases, that fund will increase over time, and, 5 years from now, if it's 240 or 250 now, and it's been active for, I think it went in place in 22, somewhere in that neighborhood.
About 23, but.
It all runs together.
Yeah.
Then just imagine what that'll be over time. Some of what had been discussed at one point in time is wastewater and water treatment up in that area, and improving that district to deal with and address that. Maybe something, once those funds get to a certain point, could be taken into consideration, because that's a big need up in that area. And if something happens with the CHIPS application, that's a whole nother need in that area as well. So it's a good thing. I just want to bring it up so that it's an opportunity that's taken advantage of and not lost by sitting idle.
Very good. Anybody else have anything? What do we want to do? Do we want to recess till 1 o'clock time then, or?
Guess we'll kinda have to,
Are those interviews in open session or are they executive?
If I recall, they're in open session. It's the applicants coming in to give their pitch and explain who they are, what they're about, what they've been involved in. My impression is there's not going to be a conversation regarding how much it's going to cost, because that's a whole different conversation for a different time. You don't want, for the pitch that's going to be given right now, to give somebody a competitive advantage, so that if you decide to go, one of them, let's say in an open session, they sit and they talk about, here's how much it's going to cost, and the next one comes in after them and says, oh, well, if they're going to say they're going to charge $10, well, I'm going to say I'm going to charge $8 to try to get a competitive advantage, and that's something you don't want. But the goal in having these done in an open session is, one, for the transparency that goes with it, two, so you and those who see on the outside have an idea of who these people are, what they bring to the table, why are they even here? Because if you decide to move forward with the comp plan, it's that process. It's a county-wide exercise that is for the benefit of the people of the county overall, if that makes sense.
So they're gonna give their pitch. Do we have an opportunity for question and answer, or do we save that for a second interview?
I guess it kind of depends on what you want to do. I know Russ, the zoning, planning and zoning consultant, he's gonna be online as well. He's gonna appear by Zoom, or Teams, so that he can ask questions. He's the guy who's dealt with this probably more than anybody else would I consider a subject matter expert in the planning and zoning area, and maybe he can be that guiding direction. And before you call in the first one, maybe ask him or Heidi what their opinion is. But I could see it going either way. This could be an informal exercise, and then later on bring them back and do a more closed session type interview.
We confirmed to be interviewed, or something?
There's 2 today, and I believe 1 next week.
Oh, I don't have one scheduled for next week.
Is there not one? I thought there was a third one.
Let me see. All I have is Tuesday, I don't have one for the next 2 weeks, so I guess I can check with Heidi and see if there's
Yeah, I thought
anything.
there were three.
Yeah, I thought there was three, but maybe I'm mistaken.
I'll check with Heidi.
Three we were gonna hear from, or three applicants?
I think there were 4 applicants total, and one was not, what,
Not a fit.
it wasn't a fit, so I think we ended up with 3, I believe.
Yeah, there were a total of 4, one of them did not fit the requirements of the RFP, and I think they were excluded as a result.
Well, have anything else?
Sure.
What is this application, what are you guys talking about?
Applicant, there was a request for a proposal for a comprehensive plan to be put in place for that process to begin for Coffee County. That's a statutory process that has certain requirements, and for each city's doing, county's doing. The last time there was anything remotely close to a comprehensive plan for Coffee County was some sort of John Redmond study back in the late 60s.
64, I think.
64?
Yep.
So this comprehensive plan covers topics, and this is not an exclusive list, but transportation, industry, housing, renewable energy, whatever topic fits the criteria, and then those that are recommended to be included at the end of that process, which includes whoever is, if a decision is made to select one of the applicants, then they complete a study and get all the facts and details regarding this county and what is the blueprint for success for the county. It ends up being a 20-year plan, and it ends up being a policy document that this board can fall back on in making decisions regarding what does the comp plan say about housing in Coffee County moving forward, for example. So if you've never seen one, surrounding counties have them. The one that comes to mind, you look up comp plan Franklin County. Franklin County has a comp plan, and it goes back to 2006 to 2026, and then you renew over time. I don't know if that helps answer your question.
I know what that, so, but these are 2 different people coming and interviewing to do that job?
They're coming in to give their pitch about who they are, what their background, training, and experience is in doing, putting together a comp plan based on the request for proposals for Coffee County.
And then the board will select one of them to do that job, and the county will pay them to perform that too?
Potentially, if that's the direction they so choose to move in.
All right, I just want to make sure I know what was going on.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
Well, is there anything else, folks?
Will you allow, have audience doing that proposal?
They're gonna be here in an open session to talk about what it is they bring to the table, so, yes.
Yeah, be in open session, yeah.
All right.
Starting at 1.
Huh?
Yeah.
Starting at
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock, all right.
Yeah.
I'll go put my suit and tie on.
Well, I guess if nobody has anything else, we'll recess at 11:13 and reconvene at 1 p.m.
PC.
You want to go back into?
Sure.
So,
I will call the meeting back to order. It's 1 o'clock on the agenda for comprehensive plan interviews.
Yes, I'll go ahead and get the introduction if that's okay, Commissioners.
Yes.
So, Shockey is here. These ladies, the lady and the gentleman are from Shockey, not from Blaine, so I'm so terrible with names. And then this lady's from CFS. She will be working with Shockey. So basically how it'll go is we'll do the presentation, and I feel like we could ask questions probably during it, is that okay? That's
Totally fine.
Absolutely.
so, that'll be the time, but I do have a couple questions, you guys don't ask. So,
Sure.
This is Shockey.
Okay.
And you might make sure that Russ, who's on,
Oh, yeah, and then
I'd need that microphone.
Consultant Russ
Okay.
is also
Let me pull it up,
virtual
take a
as
minute
well.
to help.
Oh, what ID?
Russ is also virtual
Oh,
as well, so he is present in the background. We'll get this pulled back up and then we'll mess with the audio setting.
Okay, what do I need to do for, on Teams?
So go to, sorry, I showed them.
It's all good.
Russ, can you hear us?
Our microphone's muted.
Can you hear us now, Russ?
I certainly can. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll make this full screen and then we'll get started. Thank you all for having us here today. I'm Kara Elbert. I work for Shockey Consulting, and we are excited to put this proposal in for your county's comprehensive plan. I'm going to introduce my partners here on this team today. So Grant Lang is another colleague at Shockey. He wasn't able to make it. He had a family thing come up, so I'm going to be project managing this. And then behind me is Jeffrey Williams. He's a planner and a planning consultant here with Shockey. And then Michelle works for CFS Engineers. They'll be doing the transportation and infrastructure component of our comprehensive plan.
Welcome all.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. So I'm just going to kind of give a little overview about our team, and if you all just, however works for you all, if there's questions along the way, feel free to stop us and we can engage in that at that point, or we can have questions at the end, whichever works better for you guys. So Shockey Consulting, we've been around for about 26 years. We're located in Overland Park, Kansas, but we also have an office within the St. Louis metro area. We offer a variety of services at Shockey that you can see up here on the screen, ranging from different planning services, community engagement, and management consulting, and then we also offer a variety of services on retainer on behalf of clients who need any of those professional services that we are able to offer. We also have some stuff that we're really excited to kind of talk about that Shockey's done really well. We have a lot of municipal planning experience, so a lot of the people that are on staff at Shockey have either worked at cities or counties in planning departments, have worked in finance or things like that. So we have a wide variety of experience at Shockey that we can bring to the table, being as we've been in these positions before on the other side. A lot of us we have a lot of best practices in terms of planning. We've been recognized for a lot of our different planning projects that we've had over the years and been awarded some different accolades from the American Planning Association. Something that Shockey is really proud of is our community engagement process, and we'll speak more to that later, but that's something that we are unique in our firm that not a lot of other planning companies have, is how we do community engagement. We feel like that's a very vital part of a comprehensive planning process, and so like I said, we'll speak more to that, but community engagement is something that we do a lot of at Shockey as well. We also do some strategic planning. We use a lot of data-driven decision-making tools and visualization to help look into the future. And so that helps communities plan. This comprehensive plan, I'm assuming, will be for a 20-year forecast. So we use a lot of those data-driven tools that we have at our disposal to be able to look into the future to help you guys think of the best way to grow responsibly. And we also offer a lot of facilitation services at Shockey, and so that is kind of a little bit about our firm.
My name is Michelle Mahoney. I'm with CFS Engineers. I'm substituting for Steven Yanez. He had a family vacation plan prior to knowing the date of this interview. So I am the municipal services leader. I work on planning projects, but mainly a lot of my staff do the planning work. We are a full-service civil engineering firm. We do transportation planning all the way to design and then construction phase services. We offer surveying, geotechnical engineering, utility coordination as well.
That one right there. Yep. You're good.
In the planning process, we believe in vision-led planning, which means working with the community. We want the community's vision. We're not here to tell you what your community should look like. We're here to listen what you want your community to look like and incorporate that into plans. We have offices in, we're headquartered in Topeka, Kansas, but we're, most of the staff working on this will be out of the Kansas City, Missouri office. And then we have several other offices throughout Kansas and Missouri. Planning is cornerstone by an understanding of place. We worked on over 20 master plans, both where we've led, but many where we provide the transportation component. And we've worked with Shockey on almost at least a half a dozen community plans throughout Kansas and the Missouri, Kansas City metro area. With that.
Thank you. So this is, at Shockey, how we look at comprehensive planning when we start a process. This is just kind of our roadmap that we use to go through the comprehensive planning process. And so you see kind of on the left where it starts, we're thinking of what your vision is for your county, what you want to look like in the future in terms of future development, where you want to grow, what type of growth that you're wanting to experience, determining some goals and strategies to help accomplish that vision, coming up with some good land use policies that will help you guys do that growth smart and responsible, and then having some performance measures built in so that you're able to kind of track where those implementation steps are at and what you guys need to be working towards completing in the future. So at Shockey, we have a 5-phase approach to doing comprehensive planning. As you can see up here on the screen, that includes doing a project launch, a discovery phase, an engagement phase, a planning phase, and then the adoption and implementation is obviously the last phase. And so I'm just going to kind of introduce you to that approach here. That first phase, when we talk about project launch, and there's a timeline throughout this slide deck, so you'll see what we're proposing in terms of how long each of these phases should be taking. We're thinking that this project is going to take a 12-month period is what we're estimating. So project management is something that we start up at the very beginning of the project, so we'll need to get with Heidi or whomever you all designate at the county to kind of be our kind of core team that we can meet with bi-weekly just to make sure things are on progress, getting some feedback from the county in terms of if we're doing engagement, if we're working on some planning concepts, just to be able to get some feedback from that. We'll also come up with a public engagement plan at the very beginning of the process and plug into your county communications. We want to know how you all best communicate with the public, and so we don't want to use a communication technique that people aren't seeing those kinds of things. So if you're posting things on social media, if you're putting out newsletters, any kind of billing, if we need to put things into billing statements, however works best for you guys, we want to really plug into what's working for the county to be able to communicate with the public and get people involved in this process, as well as working with our graphic designer here that we have at Shockey to come up with a brand for the planning process. That'll be on all of the materials, it'll be on all the engagement stuff, and it'll be within the actual planning document itself. So we'll get some feedback from our internal committee about that. And then the next phase would be discovery after we're starting to launch the project.
Thanks, Kara. And discovery happens, again, right after launch. And it takes a significant amount of time throughout the process, even if we start to engage outside community members with the process. The idea is, Michelle mentioned the idea, we're here to help facilitate conversations and gather data and background to get a sense of community and what does community see as its growth and its future and potential over the next 20 years. So that happens through putting together a good base of information, and that starts with community snapshots. and snapshots looking at demographics in the community, and not just raw numbers by population, looking at age cohorts, looking at industry sectors, really being able to understand the people either in the county or the people you're trying to attract to the county, and then understanding what some of their needs are, and some of their future goals and aspirations, individually as well as part of community. And that brings us into talking about looking at things from a trend perspective. 20 years is a long period of time. There are things that happen today that we would all recognize as trends, but if you went back the last 20 years, you could imagine things that weren't even contemplated then we're dealing with today. One of the goals in working with community, putting the plan together, is looking at trends and trying to future-proof as much as possible. And I think looking and having conversations and trends in different areas. There's social aspects, certainly there's technology aspects, looking at things from an environmental perspective. There's lots of other ways to take a look at trend and look at community and snapshot, and based through a background in market analysis and land use. So not only understanding how land is currently used, but really looking at market analysis and looking at patterns of growth and development that are currently taking place residentially, business-wise, industry-wise, and understanding what potential there is for change and growth there, and how does land use and proposed future land use get shaped and morphed because of that feedback. Discovery also takes that base information and starts beginning to map it and show it to people. So we can talk about things, we can certainly give people data, but looking at maps and laying out things, and then even posing at the beginning of the process some different scenarios or alternatives. It really helps keep people engaged in the process, understand where the finish line is, but really to be able to visualize data and information. And again, we would never start a process like this just from ground zero, thinking that there are no other plans or documents that are out there. Actually, part of this discovery process is a really thorough review of different planning documents, other documents related to county operations, fiscal pieces, other type of environmental documents. Those things help form the base to be able to work with all of you to craft good future goals and strategies and action items. And one of the great things about working with this team is the ability to work with CFS and really to be able to leverage the documentation and work that they have done on the county's capital improvement program.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Yes, in 2019, CFS was hired to do a county improvement program. We'll use that document as the base, and we'll build from there. We'll go back and review your priorities in that, verify if the priorities need to change, if they're staying the same, and then if there are new projects, new programs that you want to implement. We will also be looking at the infrastructure beyond just transportation, but your utilities, your broadband or web access throughout the county, those kinds of things. We want to make this as equitable to everyone in the county as possible. So those are the things that we'll be looking at. I talked about the CIP. It was completed in 2021. We then started on a RACE grant for the countywide trail system. One thing that we at CFS feel that's unique about this CIP is your decision to include your 6 major cities into the planning process of this document. So we feel that that was very successful. We're happy and we were very happy that you guys received a RACE grant to do the countywide trails network planning, and we're looking forward to helping you get additional grant money to then build the trails as the county's ready to do that. So.
Awesome, thank you. So the next phase that I'm going to speak to is engagement. So like I kind of mentioned earlier, community engagement is something that Shockey thinks is kind of unique how we do it as compared to maybe some other planning firms. And so I'll just kind of speak to what we think about when we think about community engagement. Just to kind of give an overview, engagement is something that we think is really important to the whole planning process, because we feel like as consultants we could sit in our office and kind of put this together, but we're not really hearing what the community thinks and what the community wants to do and how the community wants to grow. And so we really feel like getting involved in the community and finding those champions and getting some good feedback is something that can really help shape a good planning document that can take you guys into the future. So some of those things include having stakeholder interviews with some key stakeholders that are identified at the beginning of the planning process, setting up an advisory committee that can kind of give some feedback on some recommendations that we'll come up with, doing digital engagement. So something that we at Shockey think is really important is everyone kind of knows that with a lot of projects that municipalities do, there's a lot of open houses and things like that you invite the public to, and those are great, but I think that something that we bring to the table is having a digital engagement platform that we'll set up so that people can engage not just at those open houses, they can respond to surveys, they can provide information from the comfort of their own home in their car when they're going on a road trip, or however it helps meet people where they're at. Just with how technology is changing, we think that the digital engagement piece is really important. Doing engagement stations and plan promotion, that kind of goes with this next concept of pop-up events. So we really want to find what events that you guys within the county and the communities do that we can kind of be at and talk about this planning process so we can continue to get feedback and get excitement for what could be happening in the future. We're also going to have an interactive community visioning workshop, and throughout the process we're going to continue to review and assess where we're at in terms of engagement. If there's certain parts of the county that maybe we're not hearing from, maybe we need to find another way to meet those people kind of where they're at. If we need to develop a hand flyer that at their city hall that they can come and pick up if they don't have access to do it online or whatever works. So we're going to kind of be assessing those and to make sure that we're able to get the most engagement that we can. And then we'll also have some focus groups that we will have participate to get some more feedback about some in-depth issues that we'll be seeing within the plan. So these 5 steps are kind of important, we think are super important to promotion and recruitment. Like I mentioned, that digital engagement platform, utilizing social media and newsletters at the beginning of the process, and especially during the engagement, really finding who those key partners can be so that we can get within the communities in the county and get some feedback from some people, as well as creating handouts and signage so that people, when they see the logo for this county plan, they'll associate that, and so that'll help them remember. This is our community engagement philosophy that we have at Shockey, and there's just kind of a few simple takeaways from this. And we think that, we need to make engagement fun, we need to make it convenient, make it relevant to the people so that they, don't think that we're listening to them just to say we checked a box. We really want to get some meaningful feedback from people so that we can incorporate that into your plan to help shape your future. And then next is actually crafting the plan. So an optional activity would be to do a fiscal impact model, and that kind of looks at various types of land uses and how those would impact investments within the county. And then we also are going to do a leadership workshop with county leaders. We could also have, just because this is a county-wide plan, we could probably have people from each of the cities, if it's a clerk or a mayor or whomever you all choose to be part of that leadership workshop. We'll have one of those as well. The implementation plan is really important. That's going to help you guys be able to track some of those steps that we want to accomplish, and then be able to put some metrics to that so that you're thinking, if we're supposed to do this in a year, you're checking in on that and making sure you're working towards that. Or maybe throughout the process too, you're seeing, we should reorder these things because there's always things that come up. And so maybe reorganizing things. This is meant to be a living document as well. It's not supposed to just sit on a shelf. And so the implementation component is really important. And then the last part of the planning is to obviously draft a plan with a clear vision, goals, and then land use policies and implementation that's really based on community feedback.
And while those visions, goals, and actions for the county will be unique to the county, we do have a framework that is fairly standard in terms of relates to how the document actually comes together and what's the driver. And future land use really is the driver, and that's that paramount piece that would be up front. this will be the go-to document for people to pick up to understand what should happen at a certain physical place or location within the county. But that document and those recommendations will talk about how does growth get balanced with areas where it's understood that there would not be growth or preservation pieces. Not only what type of land use is happening, but what is the design of the features being put on a particular piece of property. A lot of this plan will look at the idea about balance, and balance in many ways can also be looked at meeting a large number of different audiences and constituencies. And then with the plan itself and with land use, there will be the capture of all this engagement that's happened and how the recommendations come together, because the ideas for this plan not only be accessible and be relied upon, but be transparent in how it was developed and how it will morph and grow over time. And so moving past land use and something that feels more of a subject area, moving into some broader concepts, and this gets into more strategies and goals. I think looking at the plan and how we would work best to identify recommendations that look at the resiliency of the economy. How do you look at future trends? We talked about those disruptors. What kind of niche opportunities are there in terms of land use and development that would happen within the county? And livability moves to those things you might think would be just livability is it from a sense of sustainability. Is livability the idea that you offer a variety of different choices and mixes as it relates to housing and affordability and to commerce? What strategies can the county do proactively to help drive those types of things that would encourage those mixes, which is supporting affordability or offering greater flexibility in the type of use that can happen at a particular property? And at the bottom line, how does infrastructure need to support that livable environment? And then livability, it's looking at health and harmony, looking at how does growth change happen in a way that is healthy to the entirety of the community, not just those people making the investments or the people who might be using those resources or facility. How does all of that happen? How does this effort go beyond just those folks that are administering government processes or owning property? Educational institutions, other businesses, community-based organizations, how are they helping to shape the future growth of the county? And then harmony and integration with nature. So a lot of the plan will talk about what could happen at the location, what should not happen at a location, how are you resilient, how do you deal with, make sure the growth happens in a way that can be serviced and maintained from a variety of different points, both health and safety points and environmental points as well. And again, while this is a countywide plan, so it's capturing those goals and aspirations of individual townships and cities, also, it serves to really look at some type of regional declaration and involvement. I always say that no plan is an island. The counties, doesn't drop off as soon as you go past the county line. You have neighbors in neighboring counties and communities. And how do the visions, goals, infrastructure recommendations that are made in this county, how are they going to connect with, interact with, support what's happening around the edges? Again, it's the idea of being a supportive regional partner, but also establishing and setting a unique vision and focus for the county. And ultimately, again, transportation infrastructure is huge. You can have lots of recommendations about use, but those things only come to fruition if there's the appropriate transportation and infrastructure in place to support them.
Yes, so safety has become paramount, both transportation-wise and if you look at the current California wildfires, having the utility systems there available to support the recovery system from that. So we will be looking not only at the transportation, the physical transportation, but also at the safety issues surrounding the utilities for your county and making sure that the utilities are out there and can benefit everyone in the county. The other thing that we will do on our side is we will work on benefit cost analysis for the various improvements that may be recommended so that the county can use that information to help prioritize their improvements. Where do they need to make their investment first, second, third, that type of thing. And then, again, we want to touch back with that CIP. We'll go back and reevaluate. That plan is still very usable today, but we'll go back and reevaluate that to see if there's any adjustment of priorities or any adjustment of projects, even the scope of the project or the cost of that project. One of the things that we want to bring to the table too is our ability to help you all identify funding opportunities. The state of Kansas has a tremendous amount of funding available to help communities, as does the federal government, and Saban Inez with our company is very in tune. He does visit Washington, D.C. to stay on top of all the funding coming out of the U.S. Department of Transportation, but he is also connected with our state representatives on both sides of the state line, keeping up with the funding that's coming from other areas. As does Sheila Shockey with Shockey. She is in tune with all of the funding opportunities that come through economic development and the other aspects that we may not be tracking on the transportation side. So that's another place where we feel that this team will bring a benefit to the county.
But we're up to the ultimate step, that kind of final phase about putting the plan together and looking at its adoption and ultimately implementing the recommendation. And that starts with another final round of open house. This has been a process at this point that's been going on for the better part of a year. But I think as you'll find, you probably know through some of your dealings, there's always someone who comes to you and says, this is the first time I'm hearing about it. I've never heard anything about it before. So all through the process, we're always going back, double checking, giving people a bit of a roadmap. This is where we started, this is where we're at to date. And this open house will give the last opportunity for people to kind of plug in. But also it's the opportunity to do that refinement. Everybody's been working really hard for that period of time to come up with consensus-built recommendations and goals and strategies. But it's an opportunity to do that level of refinement. And our goal as a team is to work with community, with all of you, as it relates to making sure that the document that you have in front of commissions or boards for either recommendation or for approval, that it's in its best, strongest, final form. All the I dots have happened and the T crosses, and we're ready to go ahead and present, and our job is to put that plan together and put it together in a way in which it is flexible and fluid. So the ability for a hard copy, but this will live online. So the way we have living documents, there's anticipation. If the plan is really to be structured as it is, to be that's used as a tool and implementable, then it needs to be tracked and understood, and having in the appropriate environment to say, how is everybody doing on these particular goals? And having it in an electronic format that allows you to be able to track, and then update and modify as needed. But as a team, our goal is to work with everyone to be able to put that document that best captures the consensus about what the future will look like, and to put it in everybody's hands in a way in which they can use it, and they really use it as a tool, and to make it visually attractive. People will want to pick it up, and they'll be able to understand its content and really see it as being a benefit in terms of how they're going to prosper in the county.
Okay, so just to kind of wrap it up, wanted to give you guys just an overview of why we think Shockey and CFS would be the best team for this project. Like we've reiterated before and Michelle said earlier, we have a really strong history of working together. I think we've done, like she said, about 6 or so of these county or city comprehensive plans, as well as a lot of corridor and transportation planning. So we have a really good relationship with CFS, and really think that we can put a good product together for the county. We also have a good track record of producing documents that identify the unique resources within the county, and that kind of comes back to engagement, like I talked about, how this is going to be capturing what you guys at your county are looking to do in the future, and it's not going to be something that will look just like your neighbors. It's going to be something that's going to be unique to you all.
And I think it's the idea of understanding, we talked about building a good group and list of stakeholders, but it's not only having people come. It's being prepared and ready for people when they come. It's setting what the expectation of the activity is. It is bringing the appropriate type of engagement to the most convenient location possible for people to be able to share their visions, goals, and recommendations for the future. So the idea is using technology, being highly structured, being able to make sure when somebody is engaged in a process to help put the plan together, they know what the expectations are, and they can, at the end of the day, also see their feedback and their recommendations reflected in the final product and the outcome.
And finally, to make your plan truly usable, you need to be able to implement the projects that are in the programs that you identify in the plan. And so we want to be there to help identify funding streams and funding mechanisms and ways to implement your plan so that it is as strong as it can be.
And at this time, we are open to any questions that you all have.
When you talk about community involvement, I mean, I assume you'll go to the different cities or whatever,
Yes,
have town meetings or for better use of.
absolutely. Whatever you all, we'll kind of rely on you guys as the locals to figure out what would work best, and we'll plug into however that it best works. We don't need to recreate the wheel.
Sure.
If there's a good way, if there's a standing meeting that people get together, we can definitely just hop on the agenda or set up an event at something like that.
In your past projects, has that worked fairly well to do, I mean, is that how you involve the community? I mean, one way that you.
Absolutely, yeah. I would say, you know, in general, we want to be able to figure out what works for you all. So we're not gonna create an event where we're not sure if the public is really gonna come to. We want to definitely rely on your local knowledge and set up events that are gonna get to most people.
And I think we looked at the opportunity to have events, I will call them hybrid, just as COVID is, so as to have in-person meetings and things online. We look at every opportunity to really be hybrid. I couldn't get there today, but there's an online presence.
Sure.
Or I couldn't stay to provide my feedback, here you can put it online.
Right, I didn't mean it would just be, town hall meetings, I mean, you would incorporate everything.
Absolutely. There's groups and organizations just kind of coming down, different groups focused in around and not just geographic centers,
Right.
but industry, types of, housing development, those types of things. So we want to get to those groups.
And even just community-wide events. I think there was talk of a barbecue maybe that you all might be planning. Those types of things. We would be happy to come and have a table set up to engage with anyone that's just there to have fun, but maybe would stop by a booth or a table and give some input at that point. We'll look at all those ways. We'll also use some of the strategies that we used in the capital improvement plan. With laying maps on tables and letting people draw and mark and give their ideas that way.
Mm-hmm.
So the 5 steps that you presented, that's your basic package, is that right?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
Yep. Within our proposal, there were a couple of optional steps. Those are all included within those phases. So some of them we just didn't put on there because they were optional, but that fiscal impact we did put on there because that's pretty standard, but we could include it as an optional task to add on.
And that would be an add-on.
Correct, yep. And that's up to you all, however you
Sure.
want it. You could pick a couple of add-ons, or you could do none of them, and we can just do what was in the proposal too.
Right.
Whatever works best. Whatever is gonna get your county to the end goal of getting this comprehensive plan done, whatever, we're here to support that.
Can you explain this, what I'd call your partnership between you and CFS? If you were, if we came to an agreement and you're awarded this project, then is Shockey who we're dealing with?
Correct,
Who we're
yep.
bidding with? So CFS's portion of that,
Would come
you're
out of
gonna be
that.
paying them.
Absolutely. So
Right.
we would have a contract as, we would be the prime, and so we would contract with the county, and then we would have a subcontract with CFS for
Okay.
their portion of the scope of work that they would be in charge of doing.
So is it a fair question to ask at this time, what kind of a time frame you envision that this project might be able to be completed?
We estimate to take 12 months, and then that's totally based on when we would hear if we were awarded or not and to get it under contract. But typically, just based on the scope, we anticipate 12 months is how long it would take.
Okay.
And that's also based on both of our firms' workloads and things like that.
And that's without any add-ons, correct?
Correct, yep, correct,
Okay.
yep,
Okay, thank you.
absolutely.
Once the plan is adopted, is there any follow-up services, things like that? I mean, after the fact, can it be updated or?
Sure.
or,
We can
how
definitely
that
set
work?
that up all with you after. It'd just be a separate contract, probably. That wouldn't be part of this scope, but we could set up to have an annual couple meetings where we kind of gather a stakeholder or steering committee together and go through some updates. We could definitely do that after the fact.
Right, but it's a really good thing to contemplate during process, because that's something that has been communicated to communities. Here's an expectation that someone would be coming back and checking in on the plan in 12 months or 24 months.
Sure.
I'd hope that, you know, because of your proposed partnership with CFS and information they already have, hopefully might be reflected in the cost, because that's what our job here is to,
Sure, absolutely.
you know, try to keep costs as low as possible, but we want a workable plan too.
Absolutely, totally get that.
We understand that, and yes, we're bringing that capital improvement plan, our knowledge of that entire plan with us. So we're not gonna be paying anybody to sit and read that plan. We know that plan. So
Yeah.
we don't have to get familiar with it. We'll be ready to engage with you all almost immediately on that plan to see if there's have been any revisions or changes that you would like to see.
So we wouldn't be paying for that twice, I guess.
Correct.
My hope.
Correct.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can I ask what rural counties you guys have worked with in Kansas?
So the counties that we've worked with, I think it's more cities that we've worked with. I know that we've worked together with Linsport. We've worked with Leavenworth,
Yeah.
but not the county, the city. I'm looking at our little list here. Spring Hill in Kansas, we've worked with them together with CFS.
What did you do with Franklin County? I've seen Franklin County mentioned.
We put a proposal together for Franklin County, but we haven't heard anything back.
Okay.
So hopefully we could work with them too in the future, but yeah.
To tailor off what Steve was talking about with community engagement, so would you work with their engineers that they've had, so if they've had any sewer projects, or see if they needed to upgrade, whether they're looking into water system, power system?
Yes.
Anything that you guys would incorporate all that information into this also?
Yes.
Would that go across the county as far as where our power grid kind of works, things of that nature?
Yes.
Rural water district study?
Yes. And again, we already have some of that information from our work on the
CIP.
CIP, no, on the CIP, but also on the CHIPS Act projects and stuff like that. We've looked at the water systems and things like that, so.
And we talk a lot about engagement. We use the phrase community engagement, but engagement also means a lot of one-on-one. And having those conversations are the best with subject matter experts to be able to leverage as much information from them as possible. So it's hopefully there's opportunity room to bring people together in the hundreds, but just as critical is that one-on-one conversation to really build and understand that the common foundation of knowledge and that starting point for projecting future improvements.
So on your advisory committee, what kind of number would you propose on that, or would you
Under
look at?
10. Under 10 people is what I would envision. And it kind of is based on, who you all think needs to be at the table too. With it being a county plan and we probably need to have representatives from the cities too, and so we'll have to figure out how many county representation versus, having one from the cities, and
And I think looking at a structure, is there an advisory committee but another series of subcommittees? At certain times it is a subcommittee of representatives from the different townships within the county. Is it the subject matter expert kind of subcommittee? So a lot of that can get determined and driven by some of that base analysis. What information do you already know? What gaps you're looking to fill? Having an overall committee that helps to bring that together, and to Kara's point, that's not a group of 100. That's a pretty focused group of folks that help keep driving things forward, but also check backs with all those subcommittees.
Yeah, for sure.
How would Vito Junction work into this? It's it's not necessarily a town, but it kind of is a town first, and how to operate up there. How would that factor into this and working with this plan?
I think that they would probably just be represented at the table with stakeholders, especially, and that's when I talk about, when we get started in this, we want to rely on you and your local knowledge. If you guys think they're an important person or group to have at the table, we definitely want to include them. So we'll kind of rely on you in terms of when we set up that initial stakeholder list or set up our focus groups, I'll be relying on whomever our contact is, and kind of going through that process. And like Jeff said, we can set up, a bigger, steering committee and have subcommittees just to be more efficient with time and maybe the content of what we'll be talking about too. And we don't have to do all of these here in person either. We can do stuff on Teams, we can hybrid things just to make it more efficient, and continue to keep things on task and on time.
What do you already know about our county?
Do I already know about
What do
Kent
you guys
County?
already know about our county?
So I was doing some research. I know that well, obviously there's a lot of windmills, so wind energy is obviously something that's going on. And just for your own information, just about myself personally, I am from Kansas City, but I lived in Iowa for a really long time and lived in a rural area, worked for a regional planning commission and did a lot of these county-wide comp plans before coming back to Kansas City and working at Shockey and stuff. So I get the rural aspect as well as a more urban environment. I know wind energy, and obviously this is a really agricultural county, so thinking about how to preserve spaces and how to integrate conservation as well as, encourage responsible development. I think I saw something when I was researching too about Governor Kelly, they're like a power plan. Yes, that's what I saw. I was going to say, I was like, yes. And you guys also just redid your zoning ordinance, from what I saw. Like a year ago, 2 years ago? Recently?
2021, yeah.
Okay, not very long ago.
We did an update.
Yeah. Yep. So that's what I found so far.
Well, and we have the knowledge that Saban brings as your kind of county engineer, as well as the work that we've done with the CHIPS Act, trying to get an industrial park in this community, as well as the CIP that we did. So we do have that knowledge. That we just haven't sat down and shared all that with Shockey yet.
Right.
So.
We kind of did our own research when we were putting stuff together. And then Jeff did a lot of his own research too. We were talking on the way here.
Origins of the county formation. I understood the battle between Leroy and Burlington about establishment of county seats. So there's lots of those things, kind of looking at local cultures and history. I think it's important. I've had opportunities to work for county governments and know the big thing about county government is balancing. There is someone at the center, there's somebody at the edges, there's somebody who's part of a organized community, they're not. And the idea is just crafting process where everybody knows there's a seat at the table. That's why we spend a lot of time on how you craft those groups and organizations. But the philosophy that our team has is everybody is always welcome at the table to provide their comment and their input. There is a place for it to be put into. The amazing thing about doing plans with this age and technology and access information, all those data points can be referenced in multiple ways. So again, I think a lot of this, when you hear the phrase about balance, it's not all about the center, it's about the edges, it's how all these things come together and those unique elements. But it was, this atlas online was very interesting. I heard about history of horse thievery, hangings I've heard about. I've heard about lots of different pieces. So it was fascinating. And I mean, I think that's, the idea is to come up with a sense of framework, but we don't come up with the answers. I don't know particularly about what happens at this interesting or this and that, but our job is to come with the mindset about, you tell us, you're the local experts. Do we think there's some relevant cases in some other similar setting that might make sense to look at? But we're just really kind of the portal. We're the facilitator of the conversations, the gatherer of information, and then the presenter of plans.
What kind of access will you need to our data?
Does your county have a GIS department?
We do.
Okay, so we'll need that.
Okay.
I don't know what you would need in terms, I know for sure we would need GIS data because we have to set that up kind of towards the beginning.
When we need any assessment data or any other type of information about land value, things of that nature. So it's
appraiser.
Yeah.
Appraisal information.
Yeah. I don't know, I suppose you probably have kind of just because you've worked here before.
Right,
Yeah.
I think Saban has access to the information that we need. But again, to Kara's point and your question, we still need to, visit one-on-one and reconfirm what we know about the sewer systems, what we do know about the water systems, and see if anything's changed. We'll want to meet with those different water districts. And that's another place where there's a water district that does cross the county line. So, we've got to engage there and make sure that we balance that as well.
So what kind of access will we have to you guys during your regular working hours via like emails and calling and stuff like that?
All of it.
All of
We're at
it?
your disposal.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, we work 9 to 5, but we work all the time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you send an email on a weekend, we would probably respond. We have an office number, but it's more useful just to get a hold of us by our own cell phones, which are in the signature of our email. So, I mean, we are at your disposal throughout the cleaning process.
And we'll also try to be efficient with your time as well, so if somebody reaches out from the county independently to one of us, we're to share across the team. So it's not as though feeling it's spending time answering the same question multiple times. So that's part of our communication strategy as well.
Land use recommendations, can you when we look at Coffee County, what spurred a lot of it when we had the planning and zoning meeting is how the northern half of the county, we got I-35, then we move south, we end up being more rural. So then you would tailor those, can you give us an idea what land use really means to you guys, or how you would, because some farmers, some of our agricultural people may not understand what land use is, or how it expands or contracts.
Absolutely. Do you want me to start, or?
You can start now.
Okay, so just what I'm envisioning, just because I've worked in rural areas in the past, is you kind of focus that commercial development obviously along the 35 corridor, but you really got to balance that with the agricultural needs, because those farmers in the south part of the county, they're not going to want a big subdivision to come up near where their acreage is or where their property is. So really kind of balancing that, but definitely, heavy on commerce around the 35 corridor, just because people are obviously going to have to pop off and get gas. And so there's opportunities for future economic development, if it isn't already there, to look at what uses make sense that aren't there in the future, right off of the highway.
So it's kind of almost like a heat mapping strategy. Where are these points of activity? And in those locations, you may need to have additional classifications of what use looks like. And just as important to say where you anticipate something is where you expect something, really don't want to see something happen to change. So land use can be about, let's build the most intense use thing at this location. It can be also about, this is a conservation point at another location. So all that baseline information will help to be able to collectively work about where are those points where we want to see change or not. But it will be a balance. And then I think it always starts with looking at things across the entire county, north to south or east to west. But as the conversations go on, it'll get a bit more fine-tuned. It'll get fine-tuned by the centers for the different communities and go out from there. So I think I'll pull that kind of a heat map. Where is it at? Where do we want to see more of it? And where should things really remain as they are?
How many clients do you guys have serving at one time? Are you serving right now, just at one time?
I don't know. I'd have to ask who our operations manager is. Because kind of how it works is within Shockey, and I'm not sure how CFS operates, but we, like I said when we were talking about our services, we have like a management consulting, and then we have like a planning team. And so they're not always working on the same projects. So I mean, right now, currently, I can tell you what I'm working on, and Jeff can tell you what he's working on, but I mean, things fluctuate too. But obviously, this is a priority to get you a good product, so.
And so our role in this will be handled primarily out of my department within CFS, and I can tell you, I currently have, actually, a lot of my projects, I'm kind of in maybe a low point, because a lot of my projects are in the construction phase. We finished up a lot of projects in this last year, and we're starting now to then build those design projects for us. Right now we have three small projects. Let's see, Cole Camp, Missouri. They all just went right out of my head. Liberty, Missouri, Harrisonville, Missouri. There's a parking study, a multimodal study for Liberty. Cole Camp is a safety one of those safety action plan. And then we have a few design projects that we are supporting other offices. We've got a design project in Springfield, Missouri, which is a trail project. Plus, we still have hopefully the work of the CHIPS Act stuff. That's all kind of hanging out there, and we're ready to go with that as soon as the government decides to act and move on. The federal government.
Yep.
So, as us all being county leaders, what do you guys see that we need to be successful in our planning process here?
Being open to the ideas that your constituents bring to you, help get those ideas to us if they're not coming to, if they're coming through you. Really as the leaders, and then promoting the planning process to your constituents, letting them know, hey, the county's doing this. Keep an eye out for the branding, here's the branding, you know, anything that you guys can do to help promote the engagement of everyone in the county into this, I think, is what's going to make this successful.
I think another thing too to add on to that is, like I talked about, community engagement is a really big part of our planning process. And with that too, with the variety of people that you're meeting with and getting feedback from, I think validating people and making sure that they feel heard is really important. Not everyone's thoughts are going to be incorporated into a plan at the end, but letting them, you know, if they have a question about something at an open house, like pulling someone aside and letting them just share what they have to say and validating their concerns, or if you don't have the answer to their question, making sure you give them the resource to answer their question, I think is really important.
And I think that builds into the overall thought about looking at this and the transparency of all of it. So it's not when asked a question and not having an answer, not responding. It's saying, I don't know, let me get back to you. It's clearly communicating throughout the entirety of the process where you're at, what has happened in the past. And on the other end, I think it read about implementable. What is this plan is implementable? If it's just words in a piece of paper that they're not the resources or the inclination or the consensus to move forward with, it really should not be in the plan. So transparency and implementable nature of things, I would put high on that list of things that should be focused on by decision makers.
Yeah, and something to kind of summarize the three of our comments too, something that's really important at Shockey when we do comprehensive planning is we want this to be something that's realistic. We understand that this kind of process is meant to, you know, think big and pie in the sky, but we also don't want it to be something that you're never going to be able to do. I mean, you know your county, you know the population, you know what people, you know, would maybe want in the future. Don't say, we're going to build the Mall of America. Like, that's not realistic in your county. So making sure that you're, you know, hearing the feedback, but also being able to come up with practical solutions to future development too. Did you have something?
With the change, with the changing of the administrations, do you guys have people on the ground kind of seeing what the new, at the federal level, the Trump administration come in versus the Biden administration? I mean,
we don't as individual firms, but we do as a collective. ACEC, the American Consulting Engineers Council, is right on top of that. I've sat through several webinars who've been, they've been dissecting, you know, the information that's coming out of the Trump administration, what they're doing. So while we as individual firms don't have that horsepower to do that kind of stuff, our professional organizations are kind of taking care of that for us. APWA has been very active. Like I said,
APA too, the American Planning Association as well,
Yeah, and so, and we get
the
those.
reason I asked that, we're talking over the next 12 months, may take 12 months for the new administration to get that
right?
Correct.
get it out, so I need some patience on both sides of parts.
Correct. And that really comes to the implementability of it. I mean, we know that there's been a lot of funding put together and offered, but we also know that that could go away. We also know that the Transportation Act is due to be renewed, and you know we're still trying to get a gauge on if that's going to come back with the same amount of funding as in the past. So yes, we are tracking that again, not as individual firms, but our professional organizations are helping us.
And I think a strategy for crafting those goals and recommendations or actions are also to understand their benefit from a variety of different points. So while something may be seen as a benefit in terms of transportation movement, another entity could look at it as being an environmental or a health benefit. So it's crafting those recommendations abroad that the funding shifts over in a particular direction, that this plan is ready with relatable, fundable projects that meet a number of different benefits from a federal government perspective.
Absolutely.
No, the only thing I was going to,
You're good.
when you said that you build projects that you know, our hopes are this big and realistically, and then I guess my point is that you'd be working for Coffee County and not like Johnson County. I mean.
Correct, absolutely, yeah.
And, I mean, that's all I had to say.
For sure. Every county, every municipality is different, everyone's budget is different, and so, yeah, just to reiterate, we we want to work within the constraints of what we know can
Sure.
actually be done.
Sure.
Yeah, so.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Okay, so what are some common challenges you see with counties like ours that struggle with during their planning process?
I think that, and I'm not sure how yours works, so obviously this is different, but sometimes politics kind of get in the way, and maybe, you know, a certain commissioner or a mayor or something like that has a thing that they're really, you know, this is gonna be their thing, and they're just going on their thing. You know, just making sure that you can get everyone on the same page and try and balance that. That's what's nice about being a consultant is we kind of get to be on the outside, and so we can kind of listen, but we don't have any, I mean, we want your county obviously to grow responsibly and succeed and all of that, but we get to be kind of outside watchers too. So.
And it's a challenge whenever you're looking at a geography that has smaller sub-geographies within it.
Yep.
And there's natural points of sometimes competition. You know, sometimes not understanding if something's a shared responsibility versus an individual responsibility. That happens all the time. I've had the opportunity to work in county government for about 10 years, and that was the biggest challenge, not to make things be border wars. So how do things get phrased that this is for the benefit of the entirety of the county? And yes, there may be something that has a greater benefit for a particular community, but through a strategic plan, the idea is that for all those areas that are individual communities, there are actionable steps within them for them to grow and thrive along with the entirety of the county.
And then I would just add, and I think this is not unique to Coffee County, but engaging with the rural, the southern portion of the county where there's maybe not as many activities, we will make a concerted effort to get down there, whether it's tacked on, you know, even to, you know, a big high school football, basketball game, rivalry, something, anywhere where we think that we can meet them where they are and still engage them in the process. Some of those farmers, they're working from dawn to dusk in the summertime, they don't have time. They'll tell you, I got to get my crops taken care of. I don't have time to go to a public meeting. I don't have time to sit around. And that's where we're hoping that even some of this digital engagement will benefit that as well. So those are just a few.
Sure. Yep, absolutely. Thanks for the good questions. Yep. Absolutely.
Thank you all.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you for
Thank you
working
so
with you.
much.
Thank you all very much.
It's been very informative, thank you.
You're welcome. So you have that slide deck, but my contact information is on here. That's my cell phone and my Shockey email if you have questions or have anything. But we appreciate the opportunity to come here today. Jeff and I came early, and Michelle did too. We kind of drove around, checked out the community. So thank you all. Is the person that's online, did they have questions?
Russ, do you have anything?
I don't.
I don't. I thought it was a really good interview. It covered a lot of ground and certainly covered all the key points. And I appreciate your time.
You're very welcome.
All right, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me use your laptop.
It's the commission laptop.
We got one? Okay, you don't know how to work.
All right, we'll get out of your way. Thank you so much again for your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you. I have a card too. Oh, I guess my email's up there too, but I can leave you a card.
I'm thinking of you, me.
Thank you.
Well, I've got a few items here to be initialed, and we do have a CP2 here for Sheriff's Department employee. We want to go ahead and do that now, and maybe we can take a 10-minute break here a little later before we roll into our next interview.
Sure.
Is the next one at 2?
2:30.
2:30.
Oh, okay.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank
you.
Nice to meet you.
So can you pronounce that?
Oh, it's Jeff's water. I'm gonna go put my stuff back in my bag.
So Russ, there's another,
State
Teams meeting created specifically for the next one, it's not the same link. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So I had sent out 2 separate invitations for these meetings, and I updated that just for this one meeting to span until 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Was that the question? So yeah, I'll just be offline here for 20 minutes and reconvene at 2:30 or 2:20.
Sounds good. On our end, I'm gonna put it on mute and turn off the camera.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks, Russ.
Yep, we'll see you in a little bit.
So I've got a motion to authorize and direct the chairman to sign the CP2 for Justice Perimeter Corrections 1-Jail, new hire, wage classification 30-2, wage $19.52, effective 1/13/25.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Peterson and seconded by McCurry. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. So I just signed this, get this back to you, right? And I just got a couple other things here for our initials, so.
I'm afraid.
You sign, all you do is print out the transaction. Actually went on. You see that donut jump on that plate?
Well, I spotted it there a little bit ago and now it's gone, so
I don't
apparently it did.
I'm a weak individual.
Well, when we made the plans for this week, Tom, I went to battle for you that we'd have something other than donuts, so.
Yeah, no, you did a great job. I buy some grapes, but, you know, they run my blood sugars up too, but they come down because it's natural sugars.
Yeah, yeah.
Not harmful sugars.
Right.
But,
Let's get that heads up, not to trip on the cord.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Right. Days that are in our office, you know, the doctor told him he's diabetic also, just like I am. The doctor told him, well, you know, he'll use grapes for a snack, so he comes with about a gallon bucket full of them and eats them all. And one day, you know, couldn't understand why his sugar went out.
Gallon bucket?
Well, you know, a big old gob of them, you know.
I love them.
Oh, I do too.
I eat the heck out of grapes.
Yeah.
How do they?
They do.
That's what I last before. Greens and avocados and grapes and mushes.
Okay.
And then-
I'm gonna sign that.
And then you just have that.
So does this stay here or do I?
Yep. No,
You ever try to eat the green banana?
You can keep
Yes,
those
and
here.
and
You
more,
normally
yeah, it
just
is.
buy
Come right back to you then.
It is well.
Yep. I mean, if they go around, I don't think they'll get lost, but
Yeah, right.
if they do, just chase people down.
And when I got on on here, I thought my signature would improve.
Did you go eat?
But the more I do it, the worse it gets.
That's how mine is. Sometimes I even misspell my name a little, and I'm like, really, I have 4 letters, my first name.
I usually do pretty good through the Wade, and
Oh,
I get
I
the
just
last
ordered
word
a
of
taco
time,
and
it's just kinda like that.
So I had a taco and an enchilada. We sat there for well over 30 minutes. And we were when we finally got our food, we were about,
I think mine's
half,
left
well, it
bleeding
was
a little
12:30 at
bit.
that time.
I was gonna say, you know I had my
A
phone.
couple
turned
walked
off.
in around 12:30, ordered their meal, and before I got done with mine, they had it. I don't know what happened.
Woodpeckers are ready to go.
All these go back in the shell envelope here. All these will line up in there.
Okay.
Time for everybody to pay the
All these
share the yellow envelope.
That's my answer, Jason. Should make a copy of it for you, since you'll be dealing with the radio and power presentation from mid-year. That'll get you cards to
19, 190,
600 on everything.
Yeah, I know.
$1,056,000.
And you're gonna sign off, aren't you? No, I'm kidding.
That's what we've been doing, and I think it's needed. Yeah, it's kind of,
Those are the easy
it's
ones.
really hard.
So, my payment. For share of the tax.
Then just go ahead and push the button and have it back to turn.
I'm telling you, just my share of the thing.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Sorry. I don't know if actual Larry Goldberg,
Yeah, I thought I swore I seen you walk in the restaurant.
maybe. I know they had a meeting to go over lots in the jail, starting at 1.
How's him? I just caught a glimpse of it, it's too late to say hi, and time I got done eating, it's too late to do much anything. Sort through it well, sorry. We stick together once in a while. Yeah. Yep, that's it. You say we're gonna break from that?
Yeah, what do we want to do? Do we want to
You don't need to sweat.
take 10 minutes or?
I don't think till 2:30.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
If it's not till 2:30, unless you got something else.
No, I don't know of anything else. Want to take a break till 2:30 then, or?
No, just 10 minutes.
Okay. I guess we'll take a break and come back at 2:18.
Thank you.
Like everybody's ready to head to the door.
It's,
I just need to get something to drink. Walk around.
Yeah. Just turn it off then, I guess.
Are you gonna make a turn around? Come on, man. It's a lot driving through, I understand that. So might be some zoom in. That sounds better, right?
Longest minute.
You are?
The longest minute. Okay, it's 2:18, we're back in session. Whether anyone, we go ahead and start with them if they're ready.
I don't know, it's scheduled for 2:30, so.
Yeah, maybe we should wait till.
I don't, make sure you get Russ back on.
Russ is not.
Oh, that's right, that's right. Yeah.
Wait, you gotta get Russ back on, and I assume we could start. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we
You know
wait
it's
till
scheduled for
2:30.
2:30?
Yep. He said he'd log back on, a few minutes early, so.
Yeah, maybe 2:20 or something, he said possibly, am I
Yeah.
remembering right? And maybe we need to wait till the time, I don't know.
Could be another long minute.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Should pop up.
Just put it on full screen. Sensitive.
Not cooperating with you.
Here you go.
I need a break. Can we take a break?
We could do that.
I'm gonna jump out of here after you did all that work to get our,
It'll be his fault then, though, right?
Blame it on the counselor.
Right.
maybe this'll trigger him.
I told him we're ready. I told Russ we're ready.
Oh, okay, okay.
You should stop on coming second.
There it comes.
There, Mark.
Welcome back, Russ.
Hey, good to see you.
Did the last one share their screen with you?
No, and that's not necessarily a problem for me. I might try to, it looked like they had a handout, I might try to snag a copy of that from Heidi at her convenience, but a lot of this is pretty pro forma, fairly standard. As far as what I'm missing on the slideshow, I can, to put it another way, I can imagine their slideshow in my head because I've probably seen 5 dozen of them.
Well, you're in luck because I can share the screen and they're here and ready to go. If you don't mind me sharing the screen.
Not at all.
That way you can be a part of it.
All right, I appreciate it.
Can you see what's on the screen?
Yes, sir.
All right.
2020 comprehensive, yeah, Dick Horton Consulting.
You choose a
It's
wizard.
yours.
I guess, oh, your group is here, I guess, so.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and start, I guess.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Thank you.
I'm Dick Horton. This is my partner here, Vic Burks. Vic and I both have a background working in city and county buildings, so we'd like to point that out because we would certainly be sensitive to the kinds of things you go through sitting on your side of the table. And we want to make sure you know that we're aware of political realities and the way things happen in city halls and county administration buildings. That's what we want to point out. Did you want to say anything about that?
No, I'm fine if we go to the next slide.
Other than being tall, he's just fine. Well, this is basically our short agenda. You told us to be brief, and by golly, you told us, and that's what we're going to do. But this is our agenda, so we'll just roll through these here one at a time. Trying to figure out. Okay. Now, listen. We worried about using this slide for fear that you might say, well, hell, we know what a comprehensive plan is, but we're mentioning it anyway just to emphasize a couple of things. It's a long-term planning document, 5, 10 years for sure, but I don't know how many people can see down the road 20 or 30 years when things are changing every day the way they are. But we'll outline your vision, your goals, your strategies for future development. You want to manage backwards, don't you, from what your preferred future looks like for the county. And right now that might be just an individual kind of vision, and or it might be a group vision. But we want to make sure that when we start walking through the process that you're sure about what your vision is and your strategies and what the future development should be targeted toward. We can't just be doing a shotgun approach, right? We want to be targeted. Our resources are too limited. So, the importance of the first ever comprehensive plan. The one thing, I hope the theme that comes through in the I think we only have 11 slides. I'm already on number 3. But the one thing I hope comes through in our slides today is that the importance of having community support for the document and what we're suggesting your preferred future might be. And so we're going to do that through really interacting, really being active listener with the county-wide citizenry. One of those is going to be a statistically valid citizen survey, but we'll come to that in a moment. But Jen, people often come after we finish our projects and say, I see myself in that plan. I remember talking about that at that meeting. I remember responding to that in the survey. People do that. And I was at a groundbreaking down in Moore, Oklahoma recently. Had been working down there planning for a year. And every person that came to the stage that night took credit for this fabulous plan. Well, I sit back there and was just almost in tears. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's what we want. And some of the administrative staff came over to me and they said, are you okay? And I said, heck yeah. They were all taking credit, and that's what we had hoped for. They would see themselves in that document, and so that's what we would do here too. We really care a lot about that process, and I'm passionate as heck about interacting with folks, and you'll see that. We want a vision, and I don't know, that's not just small stuff, right? I would think at every meeting, if you don't, you probably don't. I've sat in on thousands of these meetings in my career. But you could easily say oftentimes, well, folks, someone's in asking for something. So this is our vision for the future. We went through this as a community back in 2025, and here's how we got. This is our vision, and these are the things we have to do to get us there. This is one of those steps. And then land use regulations, connection between the vision and the regulation of private property. We'll be talking about industrial energy, for example. So there's a connection there. And then just a coordinated approach rather than being reactive. And I talk with clients all the time, and I ask them, are you proactive? Are you reactive? And they say, well, we're just trying to play catch up. We don't ever seem to have the resources we need and to get us to where we want to go. So we're always just reacting. But we can at least provide some assistance with that. We've got 11 services here that we think you could use for sure. We're certainly in a position to provide all of those services, and we're not going to go through all of these because it takes too much time, but for sure they're in our proposal, and they're laid out there pretty well in that proposal. And then we just took one of those services. So on number 6, economic development, we thought, well, we'll give you an example on economic development of something that might show up in our planning process. So Vic's going to talk about that.
As Dick was talking about, communication is always the biggest thing for us as a company and when we've done these plans before. Because you all, it's your community, you all know what works, what doesn't work, what you want to try and do, what you want to try and foster. And so this is the type of stuff, and these policies are very high-level statements, but then within the plan, we back-build those things to say, okay, here's what Coffee County, and this is all assumption on our part, it could be completely different, but prioritizing fostering a diverse and resilient economy. Well, what does that mean in this community? What is it you want to reinforce? And so I think what we're just trying to show here is that we'll listen to understand, not just to hear, but listen to understand what you're telling us and then work those policy statements through. And then the important thing, and I think Dick will get up here and elaborate on this, but the statistically valid citizen survey, I would say if you're going to do a comprehensive plan, do this. If you don't do this, don't waste your time doing a comprehensive plan, because this is the information and the feedback that you're going to get from the residents, the citizens, to be able to make informed decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what I alluded to a little ago when I first started, is that if you want community support, and community, I mean county-wide, right? If you want support at that level, so you really understand what folks want. See, we all know people come to these meetings, right? Vic and I, we've been around this. We know people come to meetings and they will vent, right? But what we don't often know is what that silent majority wants. This is about the only way you can figure that out. They're a silent majority. They don't want to come to meetings. They don't want to stand up and confront someone, even in a nice way. They're just not comfortable. I'm a distinguished Toastmaster. There's 3,500 of us in the world. I only mention that at all because I care a lot about interacting with people. I care a lot about that. And we've heard in Toastmasters meeting, people actually say they'd rather die than get up in front of a group and talk. Now, I don't think we'll go quite that far, but I just mean they can say that without following through. That's what people say. I can't do it. I don't want to stand up. So the survey is a big, big deal, because then we don't just sit in a room and create. Usually it's about 25 questions. We know if it's going to be statistically valid, we've got to get people to respond to it. We guarantee responses. But if we have like a survey of 50 questions, you're wasting your time, right? So we know, and we work with the ETC Institute out of the Kansas City metro area in Olathe. The ETC is Elaine and Chris Tatham. And so anyway, the way we create this survey instrument is to go out and talk with people, stakeholder interviews, etc. And we figure out what the issues are about which people are concerned. Let me see. Industrial energy might be one, like windmills, right? Solar, maybe. And so we hear that from people, and there'll be other stuff too. Well, once we get a bunch of potential questions together through these interviews, I'll package those up and send them over to ETC. Say, hey, was in Coffee County for the last 2 or 3 days, interviewed 50, 60 people, key stakeholder people, and here's what they're saying. And then ETC will create a survey instrument for us to look at. And then there's usually a few drafts of that, right, till we get it just like we want it. But they create that instrument, 25 questions, then we pass it back and forth, whoever the group is, steering committee, you, whatever. Of course it won't go out till you approve it. And so that's how we get the instrument. And then ETC, then once we have that done, then it'll be mailed out. Now we can do this a couple of ways, but normally we mail it out to randomly selected households. They buy these lists from companies that do that. ETC does, and then that's mailed out. But it can also be made available electronically by age group. Right? Younger folks want to pick up their phone and just do it right here. And then depending on your age, you'd probably just rather sit down at the kitchen table, fill it out and mail it back in. So all of that's fine. And we have all kinds of survey integrity They've proven that over the years. And by the way, what they sell is survey integrity. If 100% of their surveys throughout the United States that they do aren't statistically valid and there's no integrity, then they're out of business. That's what they sell, survey integrity. You can take it to the bank, and that's what they do. If we do your survey after we've gone through that process, right, we've talked to folks, we've got the issues, we've created a draft survey, we've passed it around back and forth. Once we say it's okay to send out, if we would do that, God forbid, 100 times, 95 times, we would get the same results of what we call a precision of plus or minus 3 or 4%, which is really good. You know, we call presidential elections, don't we, on much higher percentages than that. And so 3 or 4%. And then, and of course, I'm always ready for questions whenever you want to do that. But then one of the things that you will get, I'm going to show you two things here. Here's a slide from Nemaha County. Finished that a couple of years ago now. But by coincidence, I'm talking there about industrial wind turbines in Nemaha County. Y'all, if you know where it is, and it doesn't make any difference, just up north of Topeka. But you can see here that how supportive are you or opposed? Opposed 48%, that's very opposed. Somewhat opposed 12%, so that's 60% are somewhat or very opposed. And then down here on the lower right, very supportive and somewhat supportive is 21%. So, number one, 60 to 21 is a big difference. Number two, in terms of predicting what the entire county-wide citizens want, that percentage of 3 to 1 is important in market research that ETC can explain far better than me. But that's a big deal. So that's the kind of slide exactly you will get for Coffee County of the 25 slides. And then here's what's even cooler yet. So then, this will show us on that previous question, very supportive, somewhat supportive, etc., where those people live in Nemaha County. So you can imagine now, we have several of these. We ask them about roads, right? How do you feel about that? Internet, how do you feel about that? So there's several key questions. Bridges, you probably hear a little bit about roads and bridges, I would guess, from time to time from folks. Well, this will tell you on all of those questions then where folks live. And so as you're making decisions about the future, then this is the kind of thing you'll have in your kind of your rear pocket, your tool bag, whatever you want to call it, about where folks live. I guess I'll just mention one thing. What I know from having worked there for a year is that Highway 36 east and west is an indicator in Nemaha County about preferences or not supportive, etc. The opportunity to make money off of your land in Nemaha County is better north of Highway 36 because of the dirt, the soil, and it's not all that great below south of Highway 36. But there's just things that you can, with help, more public meetings, whatever it might be, there's things that you can take a deeper dive on. And for example, I still don't know the answer up in the northeast corner there, that not at all supportive. I should know, I don't for today's meeting, but there's a reason why that happened, but this helps us figure that out because as commissioners you want to know, don't you? There's a heck of a difference between that spot on the map than there is anywhere else in the county. So again, it helps you make decisions moving forward. Now, I think this is our last slide. What is it? Anyway, closing summary, outcomes, creation of a vision statement, the preferred future. We think that's huge. We think every agenda, whether it's showing out here on here's our vision statement up here or something like that, but it has to be embedded in everything you do, or it shouldn't be on the agenda. Right? How is that agenda item moving us toward what we want our preferred future to be? And if it's not, then I would say, well, why is it on the agenda if it's not getting us to where we want to go? Policy statements, there will be a bunch of them, specific guidelines and rules, etc. A framework for decision making that will help you make informed decisions, and then citizen support and confidence. I can tell you, when citizens have the confidence to invest in your comprehensive plan, that's a pretty big deal, isn't it? But they only will have that confidence if they've been involved in the process and they can see that kind of data that I was showing. When folks see that, you can't deny that that's how we feel as a county. That's how we feel. There it is. And you can get in public meetings or whatever it might be, but someone coming in who's one side or the other on industrial energy, you say, wait a minute, we already know. Here's the answer right here. So what are you talking about, you know? So, and then you were going to add something on that, I think, weren't you, Dave?
I don't remember now. I was
okay.
going to add to that, but.
I didn't plan on doing all that talking.
Just wanted to open it up for questions and comments. We really wanted to just have a conversation with you all to see what you all want.
On the surveys that you mail out, say again how that's, you mail out to every household? Is that?
And I'm sorry, I did not finish that comment.
Okay.
So I said there's a couple of ways.
Right.
In Nemaha and Brown County, we're just finished 2 years ago, and then Brown finished about not quite a year ago. In each instance there, they wanted to mail to every household. Now, from a statistical valid perspective, that doesn't make any difference, okay? But from living in the community and talking with other folks, they felt that was important enough to go to every household. So either option, it's whatever your comfort level is.
So Nemaha and then Brown is right to the
East of it.
east of it.
Yep.
Okay.
So that was gonna be my question, how would you ensure the accuracy of it, but you'd be sending these out, let's say you did it to every household, and you'd know, I mean, would the people have their names on there?
No. I'll just be,
Or would there be a number on them or something?
there's what they call a
Their
unique,
accountability.
there's a unique qualifier on every survey. Again, that's why I mentioned ETC's in the survey integrity business. In Nemaha especially, and I love them to death, I'm gonna tell you, I always do, right? You get attached to these projects, it's the people, right? I don't get attached to this piece of paper, but I sure do to the people.
Right.
And so they tried for at least 6 months, I would say, to tear that statistical valid concept apart. Because some of them didn't want to do that, right? And so ETC Institute then fended off for 6 months. They tried everything they could to prove that it's not going to be statistically valid. At the end of the day, then 100%, we had a steering committee, 9 people, 100% of the 9 voted to support going forward. But they tried for 6 months, raising hell. And I mean, raising hell. Raising hell.
And when you say they,
Residents.
I'm sorry?
The members of the committee.
Okay.
They were trying to put a stop to moving forward with the survey.
Oh, I see.
They didn't want to do the survey, but depending on their position on industrial energy.
Oh, I
They
see.
thought it might help or hurt their cause. And so of the 9 people, I think we had maybe 4 violently opposed to doing the survey. But at the end of the day, to the credit, I think, of the ETC Institute mostly, and then one of their own members, Galen Ackerman, he's fabulous. But they said, okay, we see what you're saying. We can't prove you wrong. But that does happen, but we're prepared for that.
Okay.
Because it can get pretty wild, you know. I'm sure you've seen it once or twice.
Yeah, but no, I was just curious on how you handled the survey, whether it went to every household or how that.
You can make your choice on that.
Your name's current resident.
Current resident. No, you're right.
And every step
But
of the
my
way.
thought was that if every household.
Right.
There's reasons why it can be statistically valid. So I mentioned several of the steps, right?
Right.
So one approach is to randomly selected households, but on the other hand, if you're going to every household, okay, that's different. But and then just the configuration of the questions and et cetera, how the questions are worded, the order the questions are in on the survey makes a difference. You can educate without them knowing it. If a question is number 3 instead of number 21. That's ETC stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So along with the surveys, then you would do town meetings? Say we have 6.
Everything imaginable.
Okay.
And I mentioned a passion of mine because that's true. I'm doing a project I have for 20 years now in Marquette, Michigan, on Lake Superior up in the Upper Peninsula. I mention that because that's a long ways from here. And it's really hard to get in there. Small airport, depending on the time of the year, you can't get a hotel room or a rental car. Have some bad weather from time to time. And, but they've hired me for 20 years. I've never missed a meeting, never said no to having another meeting. And so it's a real passion. This is 2 hours from my house. I can almost walk this far, but I don't want to today.
Where are you located down there?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
And then Johnson County.
Okay.
Sorry.
I was gonna say, what kind of timeline are you looking at from start to finish?
Well, a lot of it will depend, and respectfully, but it'll depend on you and the community, right? I would think 9 months to a year maximum. But again, well, for example, Nemaha County is a great example, right? We did intend on spending 6 months on that survey thing. Thought maybe a couple of months, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
6, well, I had no control of that. They wanted to meet some more, and race came, meet some more, and race came, you know, and so we kept doing it. But normally, that's not the norm.
Wanted to point something out that I think might be applicable for you all in your county. So they geocode this, for lack of a better term, but so you know what in geographic areas what respondents are saying, what they're on the various questions. And so
let me back up. That geocode, there's a number, there's an embedded way of knowing the location where that survey came from. That's what you meant by geocode.
Yes, sorry. And so I camp up at Melbourne. I got to ride the F-Zero tornado out this spring, which I never knew there was such a thing as an F-Zero. But we come down 75 and we go to the Dairy Queen and things down here. But I also know about some of the activities that have been occurring up at 75 and I-35 with some of the potential development.
36.
And so I know that there's probably going to be different attitudes depending upon where you live in the county. So the north half of the county, and I'm spitballing here, might feel a little bit differently than maybe the southern half does, depending upon what their interests or focus are on or what they're do for a living, you know, that kind of thing. And with the survey,
give us a specific one.
What's that?
Give us a specific.
So if I work in Kansas City or points to the north and east or clear up to Topeka, I may feel a little bit different about if there's some development going on down at Beto Junction or immediately close to that. Whereas if I drive in to town here and work at the hardware store, I could care less, right? Yeah. And so this would be a good way for you all to get really good information on what the residents are thinking, so you guys can sit back and kind of make informed decisions on what you feel is best. Because there's always, you know, everybody wants, and you've got that saying, I never can remember it.
People don't always know what they want, but they almost always want what they know. See, we can courteously, subliminally sometimes, we can interject some new ideas into conversations. Again, people don't always know what they want, they almost always want what they know. Well, if they want what they've always known, then they're not going to be open to some new way of thinking. And so we can, again, because we're aware of that, we can be cautious but interject some new ideas that might not have ever surfaced. And depending on what it might be, Vic, we might even, with your permission, we might even think of a question or two that kind of gets at that. Have you ever thought of this kind of thing? And just we'll find our own ways, but we know that is what the case is. We know that truth to be true.
That's why change is so hard.
Yeah.
Because everybody's comfortable with what's familiar.
And you know why? Because I've done a lot of work on this. We got to where we are today over our lifetime. Some of you are 30 years old now. Some of you are 40. And,
yeah.
Some of you will be 40 soon. I know. But we got to where we are because we did certain things that got us here. Right? Well, why change now? Hell, I'm 40 years old. I've done this good. What the heck? So we have to understand that because that's always true. It's always true. And so we have to figure out a way to, again, courteously have a different way of looking at something that we can help them with without them even knowing it. They may not even know it, but we know it's true. We know what they're thinking and why. They don't, and so we can help them figure it out.
That makes sense. Just the last thing to add would be, I think what's really important for these comprehensive plans, and I know this is your all's first one, is to be accurate in what it's reflecting on from the community and back to the community. If you look at Wichita State University's got a business school, and they do population projections, and they try to update them every year. They're 50-year intervals. And I think it started in 2016. But it's kind of depressing if you look at them, because the rural areas in Kansas are rapidly, I say rapidly, for population, they're depopulating. Everybody that stays here, their kids all are moving off. They're going somewhere else. And so for Coffee County, I think it's at 38.7% in the next 50 years is going to be the decrease in population. Only Lyon County to the west is, I think they're projecting 25%. And so I think understanding what the state thinks the realities are going to be, when we say we do the comprehensive plan to say, here's what we want to be, sometimes you're going to have to look at that and say, here's what we're going to maintain. We may not be growing, we know we're not going to add 500 building permits or maybe even 100 building permits for single-family residential homes, but I think it's really critical now for communities to realize what the realities are out there. And to me, this is kind of just an observation on my point, but it's about young professionals that are of the childbearing years to get them to move to your community and
Or stay here, they're already here.
or stay here and raise a family. I think that's going to be critical for so many communities across the state. So.
And we could at least work with you to have some ideas about how we should position ourselves to do that. Nobody said it would be easy, it won't be easy, but at least we can have some opportunities to talk about it in a professional way.
You mentioned Brown County. Are there other counties of similar size to Coffee County where you have comprehensive plans nearby?
Well, we're working in Montgomery County now for the city of Cherryville in Montgomery County. What else?
Well, the stuff that I've been involved with, some of it's been on the Missouri side. Here, I've done as a consultant, not as a member of the staff, but some things in Franklin County. Gosh, why am I drawing a blank?
Did you ever do one at Lynn County? I'm just curious.
No, we did not do Lynn County.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I've been in and out of Lynn County many times, know a lot of the people that haven't been.
Right.
And I participated in a lot of their county-wide conversations, but not as a mass comprehensive plan. But
The only
other
reason I asked about
topics.
the only reason I asked about Brown County being to the east is you're not at all supportive out there. That's highly productive ground, I would assume. Highly productive farm ground, because Brown County is.
Now, this is Nemaha.
Right, but Brown County is right to the east, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
I would just.
And I have my Brown County stuff with me, it's just,
Right.
you can only show so much today.
That's kind of interesting. You've got not at all supportive right next to one of the few neutral blocks.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of odd how that
Yeah.
plays out. Isn't that, what's the city there? I can't think of the city right now.
The red is Sabetha.
Is it Sabetha?
In the red block.
Yeah, so maybe that's got something to do with that.
It doesn't make any difference. I mean, I was just.
Just an observation.
It's just an observation. But some of your questions would pertain to housing. I mean, on your survey would pertain to housing, roads, I assume,
Water.
land,
Water.
land use,
Absolutely, yep.
all those.
Yeah, there'll be questions specifically, I mean, I don't want to say they're standard questions, but there's questions that are generally the same that address planning issues associated with land use, zoning, sometimes subdivision regulations. Some communities want to know how folks feel about having to pull a building permit to construct anything. So it just depends, that's when we sit down and work with you all to know well, here's what we heard the past 5 years or 10 years. Sure. This is always an issue. And then that's the information we give to ETC, and then they help generate those questions for you all.
So from those questions, that's how ETC then designate who the surveys go to?
Well, you're talking about sending it to everybody.
Right, right.
No, but no, other than that, once the survey instrument is prepared, you've approved it, okay? And we can go to every household as an option, but if we do not do that, then there are randomly selected households, and those are purchased from companies that do that in America.
Okay.
And so that's how it's selected. And then, to be statistically valid, there's a guaranteed, if we just go to randomly selected households, there's a guaranteed number of responses. It's almost always 400. And then you just take the results and tally them.
To follow back up on answering your question, so, now I forgot the name of the county. No, it's southeast Kansas where, no, it was even a little bit further. There was a pipeline that went through, and there were 6, I'm having a block up here, standing up here in front of everybody, but there were 6 counties that went through, and we helped them, the firm I was with, develop road standards because this pipeline was getting a second line, a parallel line to it. And so we worked with them to help get regulations in place and impact fees associated with the permits. So when they would come in there, and they always say, oh, we're not going to impact your roads, right? And then they go out there and they haul that stuff across there, and it just rips them to shreds, because usually they're section line roads that started off gravel roads, and over the years they've just been adding pavement to them. Wilson County was one of them, where Jonathan was at, but several hundreds of thousands of dollars over those counties were funds that they were able to recoup and/or repair the damages that those vehicles did. And then in as such, we would help them modify, if they had a comprehensive plan, to help them modify that for in the future, because they will be back.
Right.
It may be another 50 years, but.
How do you incorporate your infrastructure, like your rural water districts, your towns? Because basically Coffee County is served by 2 different water plants. One of them's public, one's Cell 12 up on Melbourne Lake, and the other's the city of Burlington. So as we look at this and see that, there's limited water rights, there's limited capability within a plant. How does this play into as far as your development of the plan?
Well, usually on
electricity.
So water districts and fire protection districts are usually the ones that you've got to deal with in the most nicest way, I'll put it that way, in that you try to coordinate what their plans are long-term with what your comprehensive plans are. So if you know you have a water district, and I've worked in communities, Cass County is a county that is notorious for a bunch of rural water districts in there. And typically they don't have any capacity, because it's just, you may have a 2-inch line out a mile long. And so you're always trying to balance and work with them to say, what are your long-term plans? Because we're thinking about extending the sewer out here, or if there's not going to be sewer extended out there, if it's going to be a large lot with septic, just sitting down with them and asking what their long-term capital thoughts are on what's going on. Now, if you've got an area where you know you want to focus on and say, hey, let's say up there at the interchange on the north end of the county, then you got to sit down and have those conversations and say, okay, we really feel this is important. How can the county partner with you to help figure this out so we can get some capacity out here for some water or whatever it may need, electrical, to be able to make this make this a realization.
I just had a thought. The longer we stand here, we remember stuff. The friend's name that I mentioned a while ago, he lives up there in that red box. He's fabulous in every way. But also I'm remembering the topography. Their windmill farms at Soldier Creek in the southwest corner of Nemaha County. I think there's 300 or so there. Topographically, you can sit in that red box and almost see those down there in that quadrant. And so people like my friend, and that's a really nice part of the county in terms of earning money off. So there's one reason why that's so red. They can see it, and then of course, and the problem for you all is, you know, each one of those windmills on a property is at least 10 grand a year. You know, and so if you don't have developable land, farmable land down south of 36, and that might be your only opportunity to generate revenue, you might be all for it, right? I want as many of them as I can get on my property at 10 grand or so a year. So those are some of the reasons that come forward that you can have a conversation about.
Who's usually got questions?
So, can you explain your approach to developing our comprehensive plan? What kind of approach would you take?
Well, I think the biggest thing will be working with staff and the commissioners to identify what you want that core group to be. You know, some people will do a strategic advisory committee that might have a commissioner on it, a planning commissioner, and a couple of staff folks.
Or not.
Or not. It could just be straight coming to you guys. You guys could oversee that process, but.
Or we could have just a citizen committee.
Right. Part of what is difficult sometimes is when you start adding stuff on there. Next thing you know, you've got 25 people, and you get paralysis from analysis sometimes. So many people involved in it. But, you know, that's where we would sit down with you and identify that critical group that you feel needs to be involved with it. And then we go out and we start talking to the various groups that are active in the community, interview questions, things like that, because now we're trying to find out, okay, what's the baseline? What's everybody talking about? What are some of the issues? And then as that information comes together, then that's when we start working with ETC to build that survey and those questions.
Let me add.
Go ahead.
See, that's the public involvement, engagement, whatever you call it, public participation. People call it different things. So yeah, day one is all about that. Usually like at Nemaha and Brown County, as an example, I was there by myself. I interviewed, I think in each case, somewhere between 50 and 60 people to start getting a feel for how they are feeling. And so there's a public participation process from day one till the last day of the project, every opportunity we have. But then once we have a group to work with to buffer you really from the process, you know, you want to be involved when there's key decisions to be made. In both of those counties, I bet I didn't meet with the county commissioners 3 times, right? We did, but the key person on the committee would keep you informed all the time. Not that I didn't want to, heck yeah.
But they had a point person.
Point person,
Right.
yeah, chairperson.
A chairperson.
And then for the other pieces of the comprehensive plan, that list that we showed you, then we start tackling those as the need arises, but sooner, like for example, we're working in Cherryville right now. In the last week or so, 10 days or so, I think we've met with 8 committees, including the storm the other night. And but so we start reaching out to folks like on these things here.
And some of that would be set by, you know, so we had our proposed scope of services and our fee. And we realized, you know, I mean, that's just kind of, okay, if budgets didn't matter, but everybody lives within a budget, right? So we understand that there may be things that we need to sit down with you as staff and go, man, we'd really like to do this, but.
And that's based on,
This is just general planning principles and processes that these are the subject matter that we want you to get involved in or do analysis on.
and you can pick or choose on
Right.
what.
My first day at Nemaha County, a meeting just like this, really, I'd send them in advance a proposed scope of services, a list, and there's 3 commissioners, and one of them for sure, very nice person, and but he had a number in his mind that he didn't want to spend more than that number. we're from your background, right? City Hall, County Hall, so we didn't have to explain anything to me. I didn't question that.
Sure.
That's just the way it is. I respect that. And, but he made it known, that of the list of services, it was kind of like, what would it take to skinny that list down from what it is right now to get to a budget number, a contract number that we can move ahead with? And I left the meeting at that time because they just needed some private time, and I was headed back home and going through Kansas City or something, and the clerk called me and said, hey, here's the number they want to spend, and revise your scope of services and skinny that number of 11 down to 6 or whatever it was.
The 11 is your base.
Right. Usually what happens is things like historic resources, sometimes recreation. What'll happen is like, okay, well, we want to take that out because this fee, we need to get that. Here's what we've got in mind on our budget. So what we always ask is, okay, is there anybody on your staff at the county level that could do and put together a list of all the historic resources, maybe get with the Historical Society, create a narrative, and then we can just incorporate that into the plan, which can be cost effective.
Sure. And I did that a lot at Brown and Nemaha counties. We did it, I've lost track of time, Thursday, Friday at Cherryville, but I was sitting next to their historian at a big, huge staff meeting, and she says, hey, I'll just write you up a narrative on the history of Cherryville. But I did a lot of that after they made that decision about skinnying it up. We've only got X amount of money. I did a ton of that within the community, the county of Nemaha and Brown County too. So we can work with you to be efficient that way. I'm one of 12 kids. I know what a buck is, right? And I know how that goes. And so I am today what I was yesterday, and you are too. You are too. We're all what we were yesterday. And so we try really hard to make it a user-friendly process, right? Why be any other way?
What do you guys already know about our county?
He knows a lot.
Well, I know that the corridor from Topeka all the way down to here has got a lot of Corps lakes that I like to spend a lot of time on. And I know I am sure there's a lot of fishing and hunting going on. I know the Wolf Creek Nuclear Power Plant's right over there, and interestingly enough, when I was a kid, my next door neighbor, he retired from the Air Force, but his son was in the Navy. He sold his house to his son, and his son was down here when they were constructing this, and I didn't know it at the time. I really appreciate it when I got older, but he went to nuclear propulsion school, which if you know anybody that ever went through that, that's the world-class education you get there. I mean, that's where everybody goes to learn how nuclear reactors operate. So I know about all Wolf Creek.
I thought you were talking a bunch about development stuff too, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit ago.
Well, so the firm that I'm with, it sounds like we're really big. We do everything from airports to zoos, believe it or not. And we're involved with a client in Wichita that is tied to that CHIPS funding. And I know for a while there, you guys were looking at that. There's a firm, I think out of Kentucky, that's up at the interchange that's going in up there. And so I don't know, it's just by default because you go down and hang out at the marina and you hear people talk and what's going on. I know this is predominantly a rural county and will remain that way. I know with Emporia to the west, they're facing some issues themselves, but I know the rural counties are in a situation where they've got to kind of identify what's going to happen in the next 10, 15, 20 years.
It's just coming their way. And
yeah. The thing I thought was really cool when I started digging into that was there's a gentleman that figured out how to build reusable EMP devices. And that's pretty cool. Most people don't realize an electromagnetic pulse and what that represents especially to the defense industry. But who'd ever thought in Coffee County there's a guy that builds that stuff. I think to me that's kind of cool type of stuff that is an opportunity to then build on like what you've done up which will be up at Beto, basically.
So how many people are gonna be on your team if we were to decide to contract with you? How many people are on your team? Is it just you
Well,
two, is there others?
We're the main two, and then it's subject matter experts as needed. For example, at one level, well, the proposal,
It's over there in front of me.
right, there's a lady who works for me that this is our proposal, and we do what we think is a state-of-the-art look, if you will. People, number one, aren't going to read too many documents, are they? But they're more likely to pick it up and at least look at it if there are pages like that. There's color, nice font, you know. I was, again, I worked for the county of Los Alamos, New Mexico, and there the rocket scientists measure everything. And I think they told us one time in a meeting they had like 10,000 pieces of paper come across their desk every year. Well, who's going to read that? You know, so the reading thing. So I have a lady that works for me named Krista, and so she's on the team, right? She's kind of in the background, but then we have other folks that we both have relationships throughout the industry. So if we need someone to do something special on the project, just call them up. And I say, yeah, be there tomorrow. So we add to the team as needed.
ETC would be
ETC,
would definitely be on it. And at my firm, we've got several landscape architects, civil engineers, architects. I say that begrudgingly.
So you're engineering.
I'm actually trained as a planner.
Oh, okay.
And then we've got, in the Kansas City office, we're based out of Wichita. We've got an office in Houston, but in the Kansas City office, we've got 7 civil engineers, and then we've got 9 landscape architects, and then a whole bunch, well, we've got interior designers and a whole bunch of stuff associated with the architecture side of it. And they can do some pretty incredible things with this computer modeling stuff they've got now, so.
What access will you need to our data centers, our data from Coffee County to help with this project?
Just access.
Yeah, pretty much just the GIS stuff.
The GIS stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, you said what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be the big thing. And I think everything as far as ordinances and things are out on the web, if I remember looking at everything correctly.
Yes, we have it on the website.
Yeah.
I think the one nice thing for you all is that we aren't going to be in here asking for something all the time. Right? Once we get access to the GIS data, that could be one email. Really, other than just make sure you're well informed all the time, which is critical. Right? We want to make sure you're hearing from us either through the chair of that committee or, let's say, me. Whatever you prefer. Whatever you prefer. But we're not going to be in here saying, oh, we forgot, we need some post-it notes. Or we're not going to be doing anything like that. Like I said, I bet I met with Nemaha and Brown County commissioners maybe 3 times at their request.
But you had an advisory or a steering committee?
We met all the time.
Right. Yeah. And so that is a number of what, 9 or 10?
Well, we had 9. That's plenty. As long as they're selected in the right way. There, because of the contentiousness of the industrial, and I mean broke families apart, lifetime friends apart. I mean terrible. By their admission, not mine. But they were careful about how they appointed to the committee then. X number for, X number against, someone that's known as a leader to be the chair, that kind of thing. But when you do that, that's a major step forward to having a process that can work pretty well. Again, we had our challenges.
And those folks worked well together?
I'm sorry?
I say those folks that you put together then worked well together?
Well, kind of. In other words, we had knockdown dragouts on the survey for months.
Yeah.
But they all held it together. They all knew those 4 were opposed, those were for. So they found a way to work through it. And then I have, again, with my passion for the public involvement process, I've got all kinds of tools I can use to kind of deflate some of those. For example, I always have Post-its with me. I take yellow, but they could be white or green or blue, I don't care. But if there's something that requires it, I'll say, okay, we're at an impasse. That could be in a public meeting too, but from 0 to 10, put a number on that that captures how you're feeling about this issue or something like. I find ways to help. I've got another one called an affinity diagram, and that's anyway. I can come into any meeting. I don't care if it's 20 people or 50 people or 100 people or 5 people, and I say, what do you want to talk about tonight? Just write it in a very brief 3 or 4 word statement on this Post-it and hand it forward, and we pick all of those up. I don't think I've ever done that ever, and I've done planning in 30 states, where we don't come back with 3 to 5 topics. So we don't walk into this big room and we're getting hammered by people. We already know them when we start the meeting. Okay, here's what you said you want to talk about tonight. And so when we get those Post-its, I'll have Vic or somebody helping, and we'll just put them on the wall or something. We'll say, okay, here's Post-it number 1, turbines, and we get a few of those, and we just put them in a line on the wall or on whatever. And then there could be, what else? Transportation, I don't know. Something else. But we end up with 3 to 5 topics. We say, okay, turbines had 20 Post-its, nothing else had more than 5 or something. Let's talk about wind turbines. And we work our way through that conversation. But we don't walk in and end up with 30 or 40 topics. It's usually 3 to 5. But I have several tools I use like that to facilitate meetings so that they're more productive. They're not it's like our public meetings were no problem. It was just the committee that they all knew, but the public meetings were
But that had to do with renewals, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything else was pretty,
cut and dry.
Right.
Yeah.
So that example you just used, that's in your steering committee that they're looking at all that stuff? Just trying to understand that.
No, that'd be like a public meeting. Now, it could be with the steering committee too. It could be either way.
Public meetings, how's that involving the community? I mean, you go into each town and doing that, or is it?
Well, I just
go in
give you
places,
those 2 community counties we've been mentioning so much, but we knew where, because of population, right? We knew where the population centers were, so I would usually go to 3 different locations, and then different times of the day or night, like noon, 4 o'clock, 6:30, whatever it might be. But yeah, so here, we know where the population centers are. We would be talking with you directly or indirectly anyway, and say, okay, we're going to do a round of public meetings, and then we'll all say, yeah, it makes sense to go here, there, and there.
Because like in Coffee County, I think that Mark's point is that we've got 6 different entities. I mean, we've got 6 different cities that we're dealing with.
Yeah, and we would work with you to get that defined, because I'm sure this city operates independent kind of the county, right? But you're still probably going to want to have some contact with them, whereas out in a community that might not be incorporated and run as a city, where you as a county are providing a ton of services or have responsibility for them, they're going to be much more vested maybe. So that's where we would work with you to find out, for your community, what you wanted, how you wanted those approached. But we could go to every one of them if needed.
It's just that there's not enough people usually. Right?
Well, but we're looking at, our cities are from 500 to 800. And so to incorporate each of those cities would be as far as I'm concerned, would be important to
find out what they're thinking.
And they are all incorporated cities.
Yeah, and they're all incorporated.
Okay.
Every
one of them is incorporated.
And those 6, they would get a survey as well. So it's kind of a 2-pronged thing, really.
Sure.
As far as them being involved, invested in the process, so they feel like they have a voice. And Dick was talking about how it can get contentious sometimes. Actually, you want that a little bit. You want those folks that feel like, oh, I want to discuss this, and because we'll hear them out and find out what's going on and what's behind it. So now they're vested in that. Okay, here's what you said. You're one of 50 people, or one of 2 or 3.
Right.
And that'll also get borne out in the survey. And that way, when you go get that information on the survey, you can look at that and go, okay, now I got a better understanding of what the issues are and where they're at.
On collecting all this data, you talked about ETC with their questionnaires and using GSI information. What percentage of what you guys do was based just solely on that?
I would say it's one piece of the puzzle to determine what the future should look like. So imagine like a matrix, for example. So our recommendation is to do whatever. So we're basing that based on survey results, stakeholder interviews, public meetings, political reality. So there'll be a matrix with criteria like that, but it won't be just because the survey said, right? It's important, extremely important, but all of those other opportunities are important too.
So then you're going to give stakeholders just as much as, say, the questionnaires?
No, but it'll be factored in.
Okay, if you only got 3 stakeholders in it with GSI and this and a stakeholder.
Well, it depends on...
We're not going to have 3 stakeholders.
Well, 3 different groups or 5 different groups. But from what I gathered when you guys presented earlier, you're leaning really, really heavy on the questionnaires.
And we should. It's statistically, it's like you went out and talked with every person in the county from a statistical validity perspective. It's like we all went out.
I understand that. Mm-hmm. I've got a background in statistics.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like it was hit awful hard, and sometimes those can be skewed. Because you said that you're guaranteed 400 answers?
Yeah.
Minimum.
Mm-hmm. How is that guaranteed?
Well, the ETC Institute, of course, is what they do every day. When the results start coming in, they're monitoring those, and they're looking for several things. These aren't in order, but they want the results to match the community's demographics, counties, and they know based on the returns and how quickly they're coming in. At some point, then they jump on the phone and or an email. They reach out to people in whatever ways work best for them to get more responses in that match the community's demographics. So again, it has to be statistically valid, and that's one of the key criteria.
And there may be something, there's always what we did a survey in the community, and Dick and I worked on together. It was Eudora, actually. Mm-hmm. And they wanted another pool. They were hell-bent on another pool. Well, that's going to come back in the survey is like, let's say 80% of the folks surveyed want that. Well, then you got the realities of, can't afford it. It costs way too much, and you got a pool right now. So you take that information and working with whether it's a steering committee or directly with you all and say, hey, here's what the folks are saying. And you're going, well, yeah, that'd be great, but there is no way we can afford to do this. We're not going to spend $1.1 million on creating a new aquatic center. What can we do with what we currently have? So there is things that when you get the information, just because it's in the survey and the vast majority of people support it doesn't mean that it's automatically, this is what is going to happen. That's where it comes through.
It's just one part.
Yes.
That's what you're saying. It's just one part of the
whole process.
I have a list of 15 to 20 what I call evaluation criteria.
And those will be used?
They'll be used.
And say in our situation,
yeah,
it's not going to be solely driven by 1 or 2 things. That's what I'm getting at.
Oh, no, not at all. No.
Yeah.
There'll be.
I have it with me there, but I'd like to show you with this list of evaluation criteria to augment kind of what we're saying about your question, Commissioner. So yeah, there's a list of things we look at to help you make a decision, and the list speaks for itself.
That helps there, because you're real heavy on the questionnaires and everything earlier.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many things: geographics, political realities. Are there life safety issues? Is it taking care of what we have, enhancing what we have, or a whole new vision? That's a correct. So I got a pretty nice list of things that we'll present to you and say, based on our evaluation criteria, which you can review and change as you so desire. And then here's a recommendation because of that. And that's our thought process.
Very good.
That's a really good question.
Who will be our primary contact if we were to choose you guys? You would be, Dick?
Because I'm the nicest guy, easy to work with. I'm not tall.
Not tall.
Yeah.
So during the day for accessibility, so like during our regular working hours, how accessible would you be via phone or email to us?
I work 24/7, so that's about 168 hours a week. And if you don't believe me, I can tell you, I get home from Nemaha County all the time. And they like to meet at night. I always say, you meet when you want to meet, I'll be there. I'd like to say, well, let's meet at 4 and I can be home by 9 or 10. No, hell, it'll be nib. But every time I got home, my friend,
right?
Galen.
7 o'clock, right?
He's
Yeah.
He's calling me and emailing me, and we're working again at midnight or 1 in the morning. So I really mean that. I work weekends, holidays, but very accessible. I'm only 2 hours away. And
How many clients would you guys be serving at one time other than us?
depends on the project. For my business, and Tesserae, where Vic is, they have their own, which he could talk about. But for my sustainability, if you will, if I take on more work than I can handle, I'm out of business, right? Because I won't be available. And so I'll take on, depending on the size of the project, 2 or 3. But again, it depends on their size. I've done really large projects. I did the planning for Kansas City, Missouri. I might just want to do one of those, So it depends on the size of the project.
How available would you guys help us to identify grants to help with any type of infrastructure issues we may have?
We have a handle on that.
Yeah, and so we've got, and we didn't have him listed in there, but J.R. Roll, who used to be with the Department of Commerce, he knows all the grants and the different stuff that can be submitted for. So, for example, up in Nemaha, he's worked with, I'm trying to remember the city, on daycare, child daycare. So that was a big thing that was going around now, Great Bend, places like that. So as we get into this process, if there's specific grants that you guys are thinking of or new ones, and because I talk with him, JR is there to help us actually submit for that.
And not just ones they think of, ones we think of for them.
Right.
We know it's always about the money, right? Every conversation is always about the money.
Sure.
And if you don't know an answer to a question, sometimes you say, well, I think it's about the money, and it always, because you're always right.
So as county leaders, what would we need to do to be successful in our planning process?
Be involved.
Be involved?
Mm-hmm. The largest project I planned was $400,000, and it was the least input from the client that I've ever had. And then maybe sometimes the smallest one has the most input, so which we welcome, we want. It has to be our plan, right? Our community's plan. And so we all need to be involved. So it's involvement. Just have the passion that you'll see we have, and we'll all be just fine. And again, I keep mentioning Nemaha. I never dreamed I'd do that today, but we had some rough meetings. But at the end of the day, they were heavily involved. And because of that, we ended up in great shape. Unanimous vote for the completed plan, unanimous. And one of the commissioners, who was the first one to reach out to me, he walked me into that committee one night and said, well, here they are. And he stayed, and he walked in and I said, what did I tell you? I said, oh shit, what am I getting myself into? But on the last day, went to the commission meeting, and says, well, here's the document. Of course, they had been informed anyway. And he says, well, I never ever dreamed we could make this happen. But getting back to your question, it happened because we did this a lot. I mean a lot. But we kept talking, right? We kept pushing forward, and that's what makes the difference. If we would have done that and quit talking or something, then we would have been left far.
So the last one I have is what are the most common challenges you've seen with counties like ours that struggle with the planning process?
Same thing.
Same thing involved.
Yeah, lack of engagement, participation, communication. I mean,
well, and a lot of times when the comprehensive plan is done, it gets put on the shelf, and nobody ever uses it. And the type that we develop is stuff that is, here are the 6, 8 things, 5 things, whatever it is. Might just be 3 that we want to do. Here's what our vision is for this community, and take that and use that, because when you go to apply for CBDGs, any kind of grant, anything through like the Department of Commerce, hey, here's our comp plan, here's what we're doing, and your state rep can be right in there with you, and they will come off on the money. They will support you. Now, it may not be 100% financing of it, right? That's always an issue, but.
I mentioned earlier, and I'll just say, maybe similar to what I said before, but if you find a way on every agenda item forever to note on your agenda where that item reflects in the comp plan, that can be helpful. So agenda item number 1 today, that's pursuing comp plan, page 68, whatever, you know what I mean? But if you keep it alive like that, that can be helpful as well. Keep people aware of it, especially you, right? But the citizens too, when they come in and they see you and they're asking, you say, well, let me see. Here it is in our comp plan, we talked about that in 2025, et cetera.
So the comp plan's adopted, try to implement it, refer to it, what you say there. Is there any follow-up, after the comp plan's adopted? I mean,
well, I think
2, 3, 4 years
I think
down
the
the
mistake,
line?
maybe I'll let you speak too, but the counties and cities where we're working now, it's normal that, like Nemaha's was 51 years old, I think. You know what I mean? And so the answer is you look at it every year. Now, it doesn't have to take a full day meeting. Let's say whenever, we always say the first meeting in January, but the clerk said, everybody wants that first meeting in January. So maybe you pick the second week, or I don't know. But at least touch it every year and say, we're acknowledging we have a comp plan. We're acknowledging these 3 or 4 or 5 things are important to our county. Rather than 51 years?
One of the things that'll be in the comp plan is a future land use map, which I don't think you guys have. I know you have a zoning map, but a future land use map is saying, hey, here's our comp plan, here's all of our goals and objectives and policies, and here are the areas, let's just say, we think is best for commercial or industrial development, whatever it may be, or here's where we think industrial scale wind energy needs to be. And it's all shaded up with pretty colors and things. And as you go through the year, Heidi, whoever is responsible for administering that, you start rolling into October, November, she'll have a report that says, hey, here's how our future land use map has been effective. Here's our zoning map that's been updated. And this really isn't working in the comprehensive plan, this policy. What say you? Can we talk about this? So when you roll around at the end of the year, you can say, hey, it's working, or this isn't working so well, we need to tweak it, and you can go right back and change it. There's really no timeline, if you will, or specific time.
So you're basically saying, we acknowledge it, we review it, but do you have any input down the road? I mean, are you involved in it?
Well, in a perfect world, you guys hit the lottery and you hire us full-time consultants, right? But no.
You mean advisory services?
Yeah, so in an advisory capacity, you could say, hey, Heidi, we know you're busy. Call up Vic and Dick and ask them to look this over, and so that can be in there because it should just be a continuous feedback loop. Is where I was kind of going with that is that as things go through there and change, that way you don't come out in 10, 15 years ago, wow, when's the last time you looked at this thing you pull off the shelf? None of this is relevant. None of it worked, or things have changed.
Now, there are Kansas statutes too that we acknowledge, right, that give some direction.
Yeah.
We didn't mention that today, we take that for granted. But of course, the counselor would be aware, right? There are certain statutes that kind of give us a roadmap, if you will. We want to stay within our lane, kind of thing. We can't just be out there randomly doing stuff. So we're very aware of the statutes.
Well, I'll get the contract up.
You asked us what we're familiar with. I've been in the community center a few times, and just remember, there's no seating along those walls there. You can get run over there in the community center. And I knew Steve Friend when he was here. He's been gone for a while. So I always would rib him about that.
Oh, wow.
I think he's been gone now 10, 15 years, hasn't he?
At a minimum.
15. Arizona or somewhere, I forget, yeah. Thanks for having us today.
Thanks for coming. Thank you.
Does Russ have any questions?
Oh.
None that I can think of. Good presentation, thank you.
Russ, do you have anything?
Thank you.
I do, Heidi.
Thanks for joining us, Russ.
Absolutely, appreciate it, and look forward to next week's, I believe, final interview.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cut him off. All right.
Good evening.
No, thank you guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Is he gone? Sure, what happened?
Cut him off.
Is there and now it's gone.
So you say next week, 1 o'clock?
Yes,
We need
1 o'clock next week.
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Monday's holiday.
Right, it'd be Tuesday.
It has to be Tuesday at 1, and they know that.
And just the one?
Just one.
Okay.
And that's
That's the final
last,
one.
right.
As you see on the screen, still nothing in the middle of the United States.
It's coming. It's coming.
Not a flyover state.
So now that we've had some more meetings, anyone have any round table? Thoughts?
All right.
Well, I guess then we'll remind everybody that Monday's a holiday, so our next regular meeting will be Tuesday at 9 a.m. So, nobody has anything else, I guess we'll adjourn at 3:35.